Well, hi, hello, and welcome to Actual Tech Media's Enterprise IT Virtual Summit. I feel like I shouldn't be geeking out at our own marketing and branding, but man, I love that starter, the little teaser at the end where it comes in and it's the virtual summit, bum, bum, bum. It always gets me pumped up because I know we're going to have a great day ahead of us. And today's topic definitely gets the blood flowing because we are talking about security. So today we're going to chat Defense in Depth, exploring the elements of a layered security program. Now I want to kick things off by saying just a giant thank you to all of you for joining us here. At the summit today, we have some of the most innovative and leading companies in the industry. You're going to be hearing from experts at KnowBe4, Rapid7, Rubrik, CyberArk, and Cisco Secure. A little change over there. They are all here today to talk us through their innovative security solutions, as well as some key trends and creative strategies for building out the various layers of your organization's security program. So whether you are in the process of updating an existing program, or maybe starting from scratch on a whole new plan, or hey, maybe you're just kind of checking out a few, maybe reviewing and enhancing some of the layers in the castle, the onion, the rainbow, whatever. So many great metaphors, so many exciting solutions, maybe even some fun prizes along the way. It is going to be an awesome day, so let's jump in and get started. Now, in order for you to get the most out of the summit today, I'm going to cover just a few housekeeping things. I'll do this very quickly. I want to start by drawing your attention over to the questions box in your webinar control panel. If you haven't already said hi, there's a big audience out there today. So many of your industry colleagues, your peers, all gathered together for the summit. So reach out, give them a wave, tell them how you're doing, where you're coming from, what you're up to, anything else you want to share. We definitely want to hear from you. Now, if there are any technical issues that pop up today, I do want to give you a quick reminder that a browser refresh will fix just about any of those issues with, audio, slide, video. But if not, just throw a little comment in that question section and our crew will be there to help you out. But most importantly, we want this to be an informative webinar for you, which means we want to see those technical questions. So throughout today's summit, we hope you'll get engaged and make sure to ask all the questions you have about all these wonderful defense solutions and strategies that we're going to be exploring here together. Now, not only will we have team members responding to you during the live webinar, we also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of each presentation. If we do not get to your question during the live webinar, do not worry, because the awesome humans from KnowBe4, from Rapid7, Rubrik, CyberArk, and Cisco Security will be following up with you after we wrap. Now, I want to take a quick pause here to talk about social media. Today on the summit, when you hear something kind of fun or exciting, you get one of those little brain buzzy moments, and you want to share that with your friends, we've made it nice and easy for you. You can use that Twitter button right there in your audience console. The hashtag for today's summit will be automatically added to your post. Okay, now the last thing, boy, I am really rushing through this. I hope you're all staying with me on this. I hope you've all had as much coffee as I have this morning. The next thing I want to point out on your console is right next to that questions tab. It's the handouts tab. So take a look, go find that right now on your screen, because you're going to want to access that throughout the webinar today. There are some fantastic resources and takeaways from each of our speakers here. Just an info pack collection, solution briefs, white papers, data sheets, free trials, ebooks, upcoming webinars, and more. So click around in that handout section. Be sure to download and open some of those resources and save them for later. All right, well, for those of you that I haven't met yet, my name is Jess Steinbach with Actual Tech Media. I am so happy to be one of your moderators for this incredible summit today. Now, my wonderful fellow moderator, Scott Becker, will be here in just a moment to chat with our keynote speaker, and the awesome David Davis will be here on live chat throughout the day. So all the fun humans here with us today. All right, speaking of fun, it's not just awesome content we're giving away today. I love this prize slide. Check out that prize slide. That's a good slide. That's a good collection of cool stuff. So today on the summit, we will be giving away one of 2 iPhone 14 Plus phones, one of 3 Apple Watch Series 8s, and one of 3 Microsoft Surface Pro 9s. It's a great collection. Plus, we will be giving away a $300 Amazon gift card every 30 minutes. So that's a pretty good list of prizes there. Now, I do need to remind you that you do need to be here live in attendance with us at the summit in order to qualify for those prizes. All winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. Now, if you're not sure what those T's and C's are, you haven't memorized those fully, no problem. I haven't either. They are in the handouts tab, so we can all reference them anytime we need. Just head on back over to that handouts tab, click in, scroll down to the bottom. You'll find the full T's and C's waiting for you there. All right, now another fun way to win a prize, and hey, get out the engagement, bring up the whole conversation of the event, get some gold stars and high fives from me today, is to ask a question. Because the absolute most important thing to remember here is that this is all about discussion. This is all about learning. So ask those questions. In today's summit, we will be giving away a $50 Amazon gift card to the best question asked in each of our live sessions. So I'm going to remind you that that means in every single session, if you're asking those questions, even if we don't get to it in a live Q&A at the end of the presentation, you are still entered to win. We'll review all the questions asked after we wrap, and we will follow up with them after we go. Stephen's asking me what coffee am I drinking. A lot of espresso this morning, Stephen. I don't know if you could tell. I'm pumped up and ready. All right. And then we are going to follow up with all the winners after we wrap up the webinar today. I do have a few T's and C's up on the screen for you here, so you can take a look at that, including the fact that all prize winners must submit an IRS Form W-9 to Actual Tech Media. Now, if you are a lucky winner here today, you do have the option to donate the value of your prize to one of these wonderful organizations that you see up on the screen here. Thanks to generous prize winners on previous Actual Tech Media webinars, thousands of dollars have already been donated. So if that's something that you're interested in, please do let us know. We would absolutely love to help make that happen. I mentioned social media a little bit earlier and that Twitter button on your audience console. So I want to give you a few other ways that you can connect with us here. Certainly you can see that hashtag up on the screen for you for the summit, but please do make sure to connect with us on Twitter. Find us on LinkedIn, lots of great content there, and really, really, really in particular, subscribe to that YouTube channel because there's lots of great content for you. Just about a webinar on any topic you could have in mind. I sometimes just search through and watch things that David or Scott have done, and it's just really, really interesting stuff. So I'm going to highly recommend that you spend some time exploring those videos and definitely subscribe to that YouTube channel. All right, well, one last way to win a fun prize, and hey, expand the wonderful community of humans that we have out there, and it really is a fantastic community. So you can actually refer a friend or a coworker to the Actual Tech Media webinar series. Now, you're going to find a link to do that right there in your Handouts tab, and you will get automatically redirected at the end of the webinar as well. I do want to assure you that we are not going to spam your friends or your coworkers. We send them an invitation to a list of upcoming webinars. If they don't respond, we give them one more reminder, and that's it. Then both you and your coworker could win a $300 Amazon gift card. We hold those drawings every month, so be sure to refer a friend. It's a win-win situation, plus, as I said, just more awesome humans to hang out with on these summits, megacasts, ecocasts, webinars, and who doesn't love that? More new friends. Well, speaking of friends, I love that transition. That was one of my favorite transitions I just did there. I'm going to give myself a pat on the back for that one. We're going to move into our keynote now because I get to bring out one of my friends and favorite experts and also fellow moderator, and that's Scott Becker. Scott is going to be chatting with the absolutely fascinating Ian Thornton Trump, CISO at Cyjax Limited. I am so excited to get into this conversation. Scott, we are geared up. We are ready to get rolling, so let's keep things moving. I will hand the mic right on over to you. Take it away, Scott.
All right, our summit today is about adapting to the evolving threat landscape. And one of my favorite people to talk to on that score is Ian Thornton Trump. Ian, thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure to be here today. This is such a huge topic, and I'm really delighted at the opportunity to explore it with you.
Awesome. Yeah, so let's get right to the point. What, if anything, has your hair on fire right now?
Yeah, you know what? And I was just at a couple other conferences, and I'm talking about something that nobody else is talking about right now. It's change security to become business resiliency and start focusing on the long-term impacts or even the short-term impacts of global climate change. This is the thing that right now that IT doesn't understand, that is so precarious. Because you know what? Right now, if it's 32 degrees centigrade in your server room, is it still going to be 32 degrees centigrade in your server room when the outside air temperature is 40 degrees Celsius? We found out in the United Kingdom that we have limitations on our national critical infrastructure. Our grid our transportation networks. We had one runway that the asphalt got so hot that it shut down the actual runway, and the tar became too viscous, right?
Yeah.
So for me right now, IT is got to change the narrative from cybersecurity to cyber resiliency. We need to do it fast, and we need to start focusing on what is our long-term goal to get rid of those things that simply cannot operate in this new environment that we have.
That's so interesting because I haven't heard it. Climate sort of expanded into a security threat that way, but ransomware certainly did that in a lot of ways. It brought security together with backup and recovery in a way that always made sense, but hadn't been concrete maybe in the past. And so that's another
I
excellent.
couldn't agree more with that analogy because I like to say there's many different ways to shut off your computer, right? There's
Yeah.
drop the national grid and find that you don't have fuel for the backup generators, right? A storm comes through and wipes out the pedestal that your internet connectivity all goes through. Like what we're seeing here is a new kind of paradigm of like the physical world that we live in affecting the e-commerce, that the entire sort of national way that we make money, right? There's not a single firm out there, Scott, really, that doesn't have a cyber component to it. Like even the tradespeople that come over and do your plumbing and or are building your new house, they got to send bills. They have to file their taxes online. So there isn't really any business today that doesn't have at least a touch of IT. And what we're finding is we're really vulnerable. We're really vulnerable to the point where this is the thing that does set my hair on fire or keeps me up at night, is that if you have servers in the basement of your place right now and it's in a floodplain, what's your plan?
Yeah.
And so many businesses I go to, are obsessed more with the, this what's our CIS 18 controls and stuff like that. But ultimately, like there needs to be a new discussion around that business resiliency. And I think the cloud is resilient. I really do. Even though we had a Teams outage and there was chaos in the Office 365 world, the fact that you can now, in a lot of cases, work from a Starbucks, work from a hotel, work from wherever you are, and collaborate with great tools is a post-pandemic output. But if you're trying to collaborate and it's 45 degrees centigrade in your apartment, you're not really a human being anymore. You're just a large sweaty mess that's going to make bad decisions, and you're probably angry.
Yeah. Okay. With that image in mind, let's move on. So the topic today is sort of like about layers of security. And what are the types of attacks that you're seeing right now that are slipping through the cracks of sort of even the best IT security operations because they're novel?
It's really interesting because this is one of my big 2023 predictions, along with IT being annihilated by global climate change. But the other one is the fact that cyber criminals are now, I think, moving more in the direction of fraud, and reusing the data that has been already compromised for an organization. So let's look at the recent data breach of Twitter. So according to Troy Hunt and Have I Been Pwned, most, if not all, of the data in that 250 million Twitters was already compromised from previous data breaches, right? So what's happening is in the dark parts of the internet, which are no longer sort of, we used to call it the dark web, but it's actually really the dark Telegram channel or even the dark WhatsApp channel, but where your data is being brokered to other people. And by your, I don't mean necessarily your personal data, but access into another company or potentially intellectual property that has been stolen from a particular company. So I see this attack landscape because I think the big success story that nobody's talking about in 2022 is we actually got better at defending a lot of our networks. And actually, I feel like the hype around it's global cyber Armageddon because, insert Russia, insert Iran, insert North Korea, insert China.
Mhm.
I think that narrative is going very thin. I think now what we're looking at is us making mistakes that are then found by malicious actors. So configuration management and your external attack surface, I think, are becoming the more likely entries into your organization than people clicking on a link. I'm not saying it doesn't still happen, or opening attachments from people they didn't know because they think they won a contest, right?
Yeah.
Those type of attacks are still going to occur because they're a commodity and they're really, really easy to do. The new way, I think, of taking a company for a ride is now the old way, which is I give you a fake invoice. I break into your payroll system. I lurk until there's a long weekend payroll run. And then that's when I add a whole bunch of employees in Venezuela and transfer the money that way. So I feel like it's kind of like what all the data has been telling us, but we've been refusing to listen to, that business email compromise and fraud and romance scams, which are all essentially social engineering attacks, still rank high. And the problem, I think, is that in the vendor community, there isn't any easy solution for this. Like, obviously, cybersecurity awareness training and role-specific cybersecurity awareness training, which is sort of like the next level of like,
Mhm.
hey, you're a payroll clerk. These are all the different types of scams and situations that you may find yourself in. And, here's the best practices around dealing with those. So for me, I think, this is going to be year of the hybrid. This is going to be the types of attacks that steal enough information to leverage the attack into a social engineering attack rather than just like knocking on your front door and trying to brute force your way in.
Well, you've given us a lot to think about here. Always appreciate talking to you. You always tell me things that I don't know and come to conclusions that I don't expect. Ian, thank you so much for setting us up today. Appreciate it.
Always great, Scott. I'll talk to you again soon, I hope.
I hope so too.
I totally agree. I think that's a really great way to put it. We end up getting to interesting places and maybe some of the conclusions we didn't know we were going to get to every time we talk to Ian. So thank you, Scott. Thank you, Ian, for that wonderful keynote, for kicking us off on such a great note. I have a poll up for all of you here, and some of you have seen this before, but please do take a minute and fill this out for us. Basically, what we're trying to get an idea for is what is your time frame for taking action on some of the strategies that we're going to get around building these layered approaches to security. And, in case you're wondering, the reason we ask this is, A, it really helps our speakers to know, are we speaking, are we chatting with people today who are looking to make changes immediately, or are you thinking a little bit longer term? And it's also good for us to get an idea where you're at in your journey so we can make sure that we're providing the information you need. If you're in a more research phase, then we can start tailoring programs to kind of make sure that we're hitting you in those early phases. If you're, looking to take action right away, we can make sure that we're providing webinars that give you easy ways to do that. So take a moment now and fill that out. Let us know kind of where you're at. And to give you an idea, it is very evenly split right now. You're almost 100, almost perfectly even between each of the categories. So with maybe a little bit more towards not sure. So that's great. That means we have a wide variety out there today of where you're kind of at in your exploration, which is a perfect way to start our conversation. And for those of you who are watching your screens right now and saw that first slide come up, I'm sure you all got a little thrill of excitement at that name. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce you to our first speaker in today's virtual summit. And as I said, really, this speaker needs no introduction because I'm guessing most of you are already fans. But if you have not heard him speak before, let me tell you, you are in for a treat. Up next, we will be chatting with Roger Grimes, data-driven defense evangelist at KnowBe4. Roger, thank you so much for being here with us today. As I said, we're all pretty excited to get into your session, so the platform is all yours.
Thank you so much, and thanks for everybody for showing on up. I'm going to talk about 20 minutes on phishing mitigation. This is really part of a larger course that I frequently teach. It's like an hour long and really could be 2 hours long, but I'm going to give you the highlights. So today is the best stuff that you can be doing. If you haven't met me before, I'm Roger Grimes, been doing computer security going on 35 years now, and I've been with KnowBe4 for 5 years and been fighting phishing for decades. There's some of my books, and it's funny, they're not about phishing, but really they are all about phishing because phishing is used by hackers and malware to compromise people. As a matter of fact, phishing is involved in to 70 to 90% of all successful hacking and malware attacks today. So all those books I wrote before on different topics talked a lot about phishing. I work for Know4. We're the world's largest integrated security awareness training and simulated phishing platform vendor, meaning we try to help people not to be phished. And again, that's important just because phishing is used to break into people. And if you don't stop phishing, I can assure you of this, if you don't stop phishing in your organization, you're not going to be successful in keeping hackers and malware and ransomware and bad people out. But what I want to talk about today in the next 20 minutes is the three different things you need to do to fight phishing, really to fight anything, but in this particular case, phishing mitigation. But you need to develop your best, most comprehensive defense in-depth plan that includes the best combination of policies, technical controls, and education. You need all three, and you need to make all three as best as you can. I'm going to talk about how you can make, what are the best things you can do under each of those three things to try to prevent social engineering from phishing from being successful inside of your organization or you personally. If you want to know everything you can do to prevent phishing in a longer format, instead of 20 minutes, just know that I teach a 1-hour webinar that you can go look at, and there's also an ebook that you can download for free that I think it's like 47 pages or something like that. But again, I'm going to kind of give you the cliff notes of that and give you the best stuff out of that. It's just, don't have as long to talk about those different things. It starts with having policies, making sure you have the right policies in place to try to fight phishing. Part of that is making sure that you have a good acceptable use policy. Every company should have an acceptable use policy. Every new employee should read it and sign that they understand it, and they should read it and sign it annually thereafter. They accept acceptable use policies like what, general stuff, what is allowed to be done on the computer, what can't be done. But a lot of times you're throwing in more general stuff like, making sure never to give away your password to an email, making sure that you lock your computer when you walk away from it, making sure you don't reuse the same password in other places. All those, your general cybersecurity policies might come under the acceptable use policy. And if you're not sure how to make an acceptable use policy and you don't have one, just know on the internet, if you Google or Bing acceptable use policy templates, there's a lot of them out there that you can take and then modify for your own use. But you also need to have specific phishing mitigation policies, and that's because, again, phishing is involved and social engineering is involved in most successful hacking attacks and malware attacks. And so you want to make sure that you specifically train and teach your employees about phishing, what it is. You need to teach them the difference between phishing and spear phishing, and the ways that it can be done with lots of examples. You need to let them know that you're going to train them, you're going to hopefully test them doing simulated phishing, and that you need to have specific training and phishing policies that are taught to your employees at least once a month. The average company that does any type of anti-phishing training, security awareness training, and let me say most companies don't do any, but the ones that do it, the average company only does it once a year. You need, we know from our own data that doing cybersecurity training once a year is the same as not doing it at all. And so you need to be doing it far more often. We think you should be doing it at least once a month. At least once a month, your employees should get some sort of cybersecurity training, and then in simulated phishing at least once a month. And then every year they should have a longer security awareness training, maybe 30, 45 minutes. But then every month it can just be like something short, a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. But once a year everybody goes through a longer thing again, and then the shorter things each month. And then again, you do want to have training documents and content, security awareness training, either that you do yourself or through another company like we do. And you do want to let people know that there could be consequences for, failing to a phishing attack. I don't think, everybody should be threatened with firing if you, accidentally click on a phishing attack or something like that. But there should be some consequences, that, they can be written up or, something like that if they frequently fail a phishing test. I think anybody can fall victim, anybody, including me, can click on a phishing attack. And so I don't think really there should be a lot of penalties for just one. But if you have somebody that's what we call a frequent clicker, or they're in a very sensitive job, maybe there should be some sort of consequences, even if it's only that, hey, you may have to attend more training. With KnowBefore's software, if people fail the simulated phishing test, they're automatically given more training. I think that's a really acceptable good consequence of somebody failing a phishing test. But again, you do want to communicate with people what are the specific things that will happen, and educate them on how to recognize, detect, avoid, and report a phishing attack. It's really important that you tell them that they have to report it. If they see a phishing attack, they don't want to just delete it, because there could be some campaign going on against all the employees or a bunch of employees, and if you don't report it to IT or IT security, then they have no idea that it's this big phishing attack. You should tell them not to, click on any links that were unexpected. Anytime they get an unexpected email or request, tell them to do something they've never done before, they should verify it another way. They should, call the person directly on a known good phone numbers. They should go directly to the website. But again, you want to communicate to them anytime they get an unexpected request that's asking them to do something they've never done before, that's a high risk chance that it could be a phishing attack, and they should research its legitimacy before they do it. Also, we're big believers in making it easy to report real phishing attacks or simulated phishing attacks, like especially with our Fish Alert button. You can download that free from us, but that puts a little icon in people's email client that when they highlight the phishing email, or if they have the phishing email open, if they click on the Fish Alert button, it automatically deletes it and sends a copy of it to IT or IT security. We think if you make it nice and easy, people will be more likely to report it. You want to teach people, again, that they should always hover over all URL links, and I'll cover this again towards the end of the talk, but you want to let them know never click on a URL link without first hovering to see where that link really takes you to. The vast majority of phishing social engineering attacks include rogue URL links that if the people looked at it would see that it doesn't go to where the email claims it's going to go. You want to tell people not to install unauthorized software, and that's because you don't want them getting exploited by a Trojan horse program. You want to let them know that they should never give their login credentials in response to somebody's email or a phone call, and they should use multi-factor authentication whenever they can to access valuable data and systems. We'll cover more of that in just a minute. These days, the number 2 cybersecurity crime behind ransomware is number 1, but the number 2 crime that's making the most money is business email compromise, BEC scams, and that's where somebody is being emailed or called and told to pay a fake invoice. They don't know it's fake and they pay it. So what you want to do is make sure you have a policy that's in your company that says anytime there's an unexpected request for money or to pay an invoice or to change banking details, that those requests must be confirmed verbally with the real requester before they do that action and pay that money. We're seeing a whole lot of BEC scams that are where companies are losing $1 million or more. Again, it's the number 2 cybersecurity threat behind ransomware in terms of total money taken. Technical controls, those are all the things that you can do, like firewalls and antivirus and content filtering and things like that. The technical things you can do to try to prevent social engineering and phishing from getting to somebody's desktop in the first place. That means everybody should have antivirus software or endpoint detection and response software. Endpoint detection and response software tends to these days to be, a better, more mature, platform than antivirus. But what I can tell you is there's no detection software that will 100% detect malware and hacking attacks and social engineering attacks, which is why you still have to train your end users. But you should still have it because antivirus and endpoint detection response software does block some percentage of phishing attacks. And for that alone, everybody needs to have it installed and have it up to date. And you need to have, antivirus and a firewall and then intrusion detection that might tell you that someone's been compromised. And again, they're not perfect. The vendors are always going, we detect 100% of malware, or we will give you $1 million if you get compromised by ransomware. None of those vendors' products are 100% accurate and perfect. If they were, everybody would buy that product, and then we wouldn't have ransomware and viruses and Trojans and worms and stuff anymore. But we still have those things because there is no product that is guaranteed 100% to stop everything. We are big believers in that you should have phishing-resistant multi-factor authentication to protect valuable data and systems, and that's because about half of phishing attacks include some request to try to phish you out of your password, and if you don't have a password, well, then they can't steal the password you don't have, and they can't get into the system that requires multi-factor authentication. We're very big believers in multi-factor authentication, although we think it should be what's called phishing-resistant multi-factor authentication a lot. The majority of multi-factor authentication can be phished, just like a password can be phished. And so we would prefer people going to what's called phishing-resistant multi-factor authentication. Things like YubiKeys that are in FIDO mode, FIDO mode, and things like that. But we think, multi-factor authentication, even the phishing types, is better than not, having nothing at all. So try to implement and use multi-factor authentication if you can. If you have to use a password, we think you should use a password manager, and that's because in order for passwords to have the most effectiveness to prevent all known password hacking and cracking attacks, your password has to be 12 characters perfectly random 12-character password or longer to stop all password guessing or cracking attacks. Or they have to be, if you make them up out of your own head, they have to be 20 characters or longer. I know hackers that routinely every day break 18-character human-created passwords. So let me say that again. If you want to stop your password from being susceptible to all known password guessing and password hash cracking attacks, your password has to be 12 characters perfectly random and longer, or 20 characters and longer if it comes up out of your head. Well, we don't like creating and using long and perfectly random passwords, so that's why we recommend that you use a password manager instead. The password manager will create long, complex passwords that are different for every website and service that you might use. So again, if you can't use multi-factor authentication, we then think you should use a password manager. We also think every single organization in the world should have these 3 global phishing protection standards enabled. And if you don't have them enabled, if you're not sure if you have them enabled, you should make sure that your company has them enabled. And these 3 standards, Sender Policy Framework, SPF, Domain Keys Identified Mail, DKIM, and DMARC, Domain-Based Message Authentication Reporting and Conformance. And actually, the DMARC standard relies upon SPF and or DKIM. You can't have DMARC without SPF or DKIM. We think you need to have all 3 enabled, SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. And what they do is when they're enabled on a domain, if you get an email from that domain, you can prove whether or not the email really came from that domain. So if you get an email claiming that it's from Microsoft or Facebook or Twitter or KnowBe4, if the vendor's domain that it claims to be from has SPF, DKIM, and DMARC enabled, a receiver, really the email client on your behalf, will determine whether or not the email really came from that. The way that SPF works is it looks at what's called the mail from domain address, which is not that first friendly from address that you'll see, like in this example, this phishing attack. The email was claiming to be from Apple at service.com, but it really didn't come from that. It came from this gobbledygook name at entertainingworkshop.com, which is definitely not Apple. But with SPF enabled, SPF will look at that what's called the 5322 address, and then try to see did the email really come from that address from where it claims. DKIM is when you enable DKIM on an email server, it signs every outgoing email, and a receiver can find out whether or not that email was truly signed by the server that the email claims to be from. And then DMARC, again, tells receivers, if you get an email that claims to be from my domain, from Microsoft.com or KnowBe4.com or whatever, and if you get an email and it fails the SPF or DKIM checks, what you should do, and hopefully it's telling you should delete it or reject it or at least have it show up in your spam folder. And even today, if you don't realize this, every email client is checking for SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. You can open up, if you go on your email client, whether it's Outlook or Gmail or Thunderbird or whatever, Apple Mail, if you go into the email header, you want to look, if you want to see where this is, you can actually go look for SPF equals or DKIM equals or DMARC equals, and you're going to see pass or fail or none. Pass means that the email really is coming from the domain that it claims it was sent from, and if it says fail, that means it isn't coming from the domain that it was sent from. It says none, that means the organization's domain does not have SPF, DKIM, or DMARC enabled. But you can see an example. Here's a phishing email that's claiming to be from Microsoft, but you can see that it said failed, SPF failed, versus the previous slide, which was an email claiming to be from SunTrust, but you can see it really came from harlanclark.com. So it was Harlan Clark was sending me an email based upon SunTrust when I had ordered some checks, and Harlan Clark makes the checks. but you can see it's claiming that it's not the first address it looks at, it's the second address, not the friendly from address, it's the 5352 address. It says from harlandclark.com, and it really is from harlandclark.com. Here's DChem, where again, if you look in the header there, look for DChem equals, and this is DChem pass. And again, what that means is that email was signed and came from an email server from the domain that it claims to be from. It passed. In this particular case, it really did come from harlandclark.com. And you want to make sure, let me say this again, that every organization should have SPF, DChem, and DMARC enabled. That allows someone receiving an email that claims to be from your domain to figure out whether or not it really was from your domain. It helps people figure out who the scammers are. You should also, on a technical control basis, make sure you have content filtering enabled. It should be on your email client and also should be on your browser secondarily, if not on your workstation. We certainly think you should have spam filtering software, phishing filtering software, and email filtering software. All of them just trying to decrease the amount of spam that gets to someone's desktop. You should have some sort of filtering that blocks malicious file attachments, like Office 365 by default, I think blocks like 40 different file attachment types like EXEs and screensaver files and DLLs and that sort of stuff. So you should, if you can, have an email client or some software that blocks malicious file attachments. It's also really cool. This is not as popular, but it's still out there. But there's a lot of products that do what's called URL detonation or sandboxing. But what this does is when you get an email that has a link or a file, it will actually execute the link or the file inside of this virtual sandbox area to see if it has any malicious activity in it. Lots of vendors make products about it. Microsoft makes products. Google, Barracuda, Proofpoint, Bluecoat, FireEye, lots of these URL detonation, file attachment, and URL detonation. Again, what happens, here's an example of Office 365. Someone got an email and they went to go open it quickly, but Office 365 says, oh, we're making sure your attachments are safe, and what they're doing is doing that URL or file attachment detonation. And then if it passes those checks, it will send it back to the email and will show up as a file attachment. It isn't, just like antivirus and firewalls and endpoint detection and response, it's not 100% accurate, but it's still yet another good check. And I think anybody that has a file attachment and URL detonation software product it's going to help you avoid some amount of maliciousness. Now, we certainly think blacklists are good things to have. You can put that on your email server. Like I use the Blacklist Master. If you go to the blacklistmaster.com, has over 108 different blacklists, and those are, blacklists that say these domains are sending malware or spam and things like that, and they get updated, all the time. And I think that's good because it can block, an email coming from a compromised domain. Maybe it's a good domain, but right now it's compromised. It will mean, it could end up on the blacklist. We also think that no matter how good your training and your technical controls are, some part of it is going to there is some amount of badness of spam and social engineering that will get past your technical controls, and you need to teach your employees on how to spot and recognize phishing and social engineering attacks. We're very big believers in that you should train your employees at least once a month. You should do simulated phishing tests at least once a month. And if they fail the simulated phishing test, they should get more training. We know that of our customers that do this, the new customers that come to us, about 30% of their employees, sometimes higher, can be socially engineered in what we call the fish-prone percentage. After they get training once a month in a year, it's less than 5% of your staff. And since social engineering and phishing comprises most attacks, it's a very smart thing to do. Also, if you're going to do training, it needs to be frequent, redundant, and entertaining. You want to kind of train like you're a marketer. If you're watching a show, you're like, my God, that commercial's on for the 5th time. I hate it, but you also many times remember the funny commercials, the Geico commercials or the Caveman commercials or whatever it might be. So if you want your employees to remember your training, make sure that you're doing it frequent, entertaining, and redundant. They should get longer training when they're first hired, again, 30, 45 minutes of training. Then ongoing, you should have shorter trainings and then monthly simulated phishing And if you do that, you will significantly reduce the percentage of people that will click on a phishing attack. You can click on this link here or follow this link in the slide and download our red flags training PDF. That's a PDF that you can download, print, or send to anybody, but it has 22 signs that you might notice that a email is a social engineering email. Also, our fish alert button, don't forget that. That's a really good thing you can do, is install that in Gmail and Outlook clients and give them that little fish hook. And if they're in a phishing email, they can simply click and it will delete the email and send it to IT or IT security. We're also big believers in that you should have data and know about the people that need to have more training. Some people in your company will never click on a phishing attack. Other people click on every phishing attack. You need to figure out which one is which so you can give them good training. Also, make sure one of the best things you can do is teach your users how to read URL domains to spot the dubious ones. Like, here's a test email that's claiming that it came, it's from Microsoft, but it really didn't come from Microsoft. It came from a domain called DevOpsNW.com, not Microsoft.com. Even though it has the word Microsoft Online in the command line there, that's not the domain name. Or in this example here, it's an email that looks like it came from LinkedIn, but if you'd hover over the link, you'd say it's LL LinkedIn, not LinkedIn.com, but LL LinkedIn, which is not LinkedIn. So teach your users and yourself how to spot these rogue URLs, and you can download this PDF attachment and give it to anyone, and this covers the top 10 most common rogue URL tricks. And again, you can print this up, send it to anyone. With that said, I know we only have a minute or two left, but I'd love to take some questions if anybody has some questions. If we don't get to your question today, you can email me at rogerg@knowbefore.com. But with that, did we get any questions?
Yeah, Roger, we got a lot of questions. And as you said, we're a little short on time, so we're not going to be able to dig into all of them. But I am going to leave up Roger's contact just a second longer, and then I'm going to move over to a poll. So grab that contact real quick, take a screenshot if you haven't already, and poll. Okay, so what we want to know is what additional information you would like to get about the KnowBefore solution. Obviously, we just got a lot of great information in a very short period of time. There is lots more to say, so please do click on this poll and let KnowBefore know how they can follow up with you. And of course, any questions that we don't get to today, we will make sure get to Roger and the KnowBefore team, so you will get some answers back. Roger, in the very short amount of time that we have left, I'm wondering, I had probably 10 questions come in with people asking about how they can evaluate choosing the best password manager for their company. And obviously there's pros and cons. I'm just wondering if you can give any insight to somebody out there that is making that choice about a specific solution for their organization.
Yeah, sure. I actually teach a webinar about it where I tell people how to pick a good password manager. Just know there's lots of good ones out there. And just in the short time I have, what I'd recommend is go to Wired Magazine. That's wired.com, Wired Magazine at wired.com. Type in the search term password manager, and they have 2 great password manager reviews where they recommend multiple password managers, and I agree with their recommendations.
Perfect. That is a great way to answer that. Like I said, Roger, I'm very bummed that we have to move things along here and let you go. But before you do take off, if somebody wants to get started with KnowBefore, they want to jump in, what do you recommend as their first step?
They can go to knowbefore.com and fill out there's a different place you can put your email address, and we'll make sure we get somebody to, give you a call. And let me say that if, when they call you, you can plan the time when they talk to you, but they'll quickly demonstrate it. We try to not waste people's time. We get right to it. We can show you the products or the benefits, or you can email me at rogerg@knowbefore.com, and I can help you do that as well.
Such a great thing. You're so accessible and available to audiences like these, which is very much appreciated. You have a lot of fans out there in the audience today. Roger, I'm sneaking in one last question for you. Your handout, which I was going to mention and ask people to go click on, but since I've got you here, it's a link to get some information about the KnowBefore coaching. And this is a way that you can identify sort of problems or risky behavior in real time. Is there anything else that you'd want someone to know about that coaching option?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's our security coach product, and it's pretty cool if your employees do a bad behavior that one of your other products catches, like maybe your firewall blocks a malicious link or blocks some bad content. The security coach will automatically give them a coaching link or document or video so it's immediate coaching only for people that have violated your policy, and it gives them coaching right away, right when it happens. And there's no better training than someone being told, hey, you violated a policy, and here's, what the policy is, or here's a video about it. That's the best training. Waiting once a month or once a year, people aren't going to remember what they did wrong. Security Coach helps get the right training to the right people at the right time.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I saw a question coming in saying, how do we get people who are good into that great category when it comes to this sort of thing? And I think that real-time response is one very effective way to move that particular bar. So thank you very much, Roger, for being here with us, and lots and lots of questions coming in. So we'll make sure that those all get to your team. And we really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, and thanks everybody for listening.
All right, and I'm going to leave that poll up for just a second longer while I give away a couple of prizes, because that's right, we have come to our very first prize giveaway of the summit. We're going to start with a $300 Amazon gift card, and I will remind you all out there in the audience today that you do need to be here live at the summit in order to qualify to win. So you guys are already step one towards winning a prize just by being here. Our very first lucky winner of a $300 Amazon gift card is Charles Gall of Illinois. Charles Gall of Illinois. And because I'm feeling feisty already and I've clearly had my coffee, I'm going to go ahead and give away a grand prize. So we're going to start with an Apple Watch Series 8. So I'm going to give away 3 of these Apple Watch Series 8s. The first one going to Eric Wursbacher of Ohio. Then we're going to go to Vrej Anbarsoon of California. That's a familiar name. Always love seeing that. And Mark Stevenson of Maryland. Eric Wursbacher of Ohio, Vrej Anbarsoon of California, and Mark Stevenson of Maryland. Love to see you when our regulars are on that winners list. Congratulations to Eric, Vrej, and Mark. And, of course, congrats to Charles on that $300 Amazon gift card. We will follow up with all of you after we wrap. Now, don't forget, there's still lots more chances to win a prize. Plus, we have that best question gift card from each session, and I know that this next presentation is going to get those questions flowing, because this is a really fun one. It is my pleasure to bring out a speaker who is not only an expert, but I have it on good authority that he is also a meme master and has a pretty fun presentation lined up for us all. So I think we should get into it. I'm so happy to introduce you all to Jeffrey Gardner, Practice Advisor, Detection and Response at Rapid7. Jeffrey, I know you have some awesome content lined up for us, so I'm going to hand the mic right on over to you. Take it away.
Hello, everyone, and thank you all for joining us here today to talk about defense in depth. A little about myself and why the heck you should care about what I'm saying before we begin to dive into the presentation. My name is Jeffrey Gardner, and I'm a practice advisor here at Rapid7. I started off back in the ye olde times when I was 12 building tone generators with my cousin, aka Freaking with a P. This was back when payphones were still a thing, and that quickly escalated into BBSs, IRC shenanigans, messing with autoexec bat and config.sys and MS-DOS 6.2, still to this day, the best DOS, and an 88-mile-per-hour trip to the future where some 20-plus years later, I've ascended Olympus and become a CISO a few times over. And I wanted to do more to help just the organization I belong to and, provide an impact to the broader security community at large. Rapid7 then came along, created this position, and here I am. Now, I'm also a vet, a tattoo artist, and a bad horror movie aficionado. Now, what are we actually going to cover today? Since I'm a bit of a history fan, we'll briefly cover where the defense in depth concept came from, then we'll transition to the challenges facing practitioners today, and the difference between layered security and defense in depth. We'll then get into the differences between the traditional defense in depth stack and a more modern version, and then finish with some Q&A. So the actual concept of defense in depth goes back to World War I, where the strategy developed to prevent an enemy breakthrough of the front lines by using a deep system of interconnected trench lines and strong points. The goal wasn't to prevent an attack. It was to delay the advance of the attacking force, essentially buying time. This strategy relies on the tendency of an attack to lose momentum over a period of time, or as it spreads to cover a larger area. Once the attack has lost momentum or it covers a large enough area, defensive counterattacks were then mounted to cause attrition warfare or drive the attacker back to their original position. However, before we go any further, we needed to discuss 2 things. First, define the challenges we face before coming up with solutions. And second, we need to clarify the misconception that layered security is defense in depth. So what are these challenges? First, it takes far too long still for breaches to be discovered. Employees still continue to fall victim to phishing attacks. Known vulnerabilities are not being patched and/or updates take too long to be applied or are ignored. Policies are not enforced and/or are simply not well known by employees. Missing or poorly implemented encryption is still existing. Remote work, workers connecting to unsecured or compromised networks. Physical security flaws such as unsecured server rooms. And this is, I'm sure, been felt by everybody in the last year or two. Business partners and supply chains not being secure. Now, about layered security. Layered security uses multiple products to address one aspect of security, such as detecting intrusions or filtering email, while defense in depth is broader and more strategic in scope and incorporates all of the organization's security measures to address issues related to endpoint, application, cloud, network security, etc. Put another way, defense in depth presumes a predictive, broader, and more varied view of defense. Now, layered security is normally split into 3 layers. The first is physical controls, or those that protect physical assets from harm. Examples of physical controls would be locked doors, security guards, or FM200 fire suppression systems, one of the alternatives to Halon. The second is technical controls, which most of us are probably very familiar with. Things like endpoint protection, firewalls, IDS, IPS, and others fall into this category. Most of our defense in depth controls live in this arena. And lastly, the third layer is administrative controls. Policies, procedures, and user training are all examples of this layer. Now, additionally, layered security and defense in depth aren't mutually exclusive. You can utilize layered security within a defense in depth approach, and ideally you should be doing both. So while defense in depth has been applied in many different fields, we're here to talk about how it applies to information security. As mentioned before, it is a strategy using multiple different security measures to protect data and to cover all angles of security, network, endpoint, etc., intentionally being redundant when necessary, so that if one line of defense is compromised, additional layers of defense are in place to ensure that things don't slip through the cracks. Now, if any of you have ever seen any presentation I've ever given, or we're meeting for the first time, you need to know I have a deep love of Neapolitan ice cream. And it just so happens that just like the aforementioned flavor of ice cream, the architecture for defense in depth can also be separated into 3 layers for each area at risk, and it goes by the acronym PDR. The first up is prevention. Preventing attacks is always the goal, but it's important to remember that at some point, prevention will always fail. The second is detection. Detection, in my opinion, is the most important layer. If you can't detect, you can't adjust your defenses to prevent, and you certainly aren't going to be able to respond. The third layer is response, or the ability to take action on threats. Within any good defense in depth strategy lies all 3 elements of PDR. Now, since we only have a limited amount of time together today, I'd like to focus on the technical controls that were applied in the more traditional defense in depth strategies. So first up is network security solutions, such as firewalls, VPN concentrators, VLANs, etc. Next up is the endpoint security solution, or what most of us know today as antivirus software. This is pretty much, hopefully, table stakes in most organizations at this point in time. Secure gateways are also pretty common in the mix, and most of you may know of these as proxies, but things such as email filtering solutions also fall into this category. Patch and vulnerability management tools are meant to scan the networks for vulnerabilities and help keep endpoint operating systems and applications up to date. Backup and recovery solutions. So systems can be restored to a known good state in case of malfunction or compromise. Strong, complex passwords, unlike 1234. Pretty much well known, but also one of the biggest tropes that I encounter. So when it comes to passwords, having complexity definitely helps. The number one and the exclamation mark at the end of your password is a step forward, but length has overtaken complexity in terms of importance, at least until quantum computing becomes mainstream, but that's another topic for another day. And lastly, the concept of least privilege, or only giving users and accounts the minimum access level or permissions needed to do their job. Most of what we've just talked about should be hopefully pretty familiar to everybody. So let's move on to a more modern approach to defense in depth. So as organizations grow and mature, it's likely they'll adopt a more modern approach to defense in depth. This approach doesn't do away with the traditional elements of defense in depth. Rather, it expands and complements them. So IDSs and IPSs, otherwise known as intrusion detection and intrusion prevention systems. These are used to identify potentially malicious activity and, in the case of an IPS, stop attacks at the network level. Now, a bit of a cautionary tale with regards to placement. Due to the nature of what an IPS does, doing computationally expensive deep packet inspections, I recommend to be placed at the edge or perimeter of your network, such as immediately after your firewall or router. That way, the IPS will see the right amount of traffic it needs to do its job and will keep performance issues, such as network degradation, under control. The IDS, which is a passive system, can be placed at bottlenecks between networks or can utilize a tap or span port to monitor traffic. Because it's not able to take action, it doesn't need to be in line, which is a potential drawback to utilizing an IPS. Next up is EDR, or Endpoint Detection and Response Tools. This moves beyond just simple alerting and blocking and tackling that antivirus provides and gives you additional telemetry to detect sophisticated attacks and gives more options on how one could respond. For example, opening up a shell, stopping a process, deleting files, etc. User identity and access management. Things like lifecycle management tools, single sign-on, and MFA, also known as multi-factor authentication, as opposed to 2FA or two-factor authentication. Now, most of us know 2FA and hopefully have it enabled on the majority of websites you log into. You go to your banking website, enter in your password, you get the prompt for a code, and your cell phone dings with the text containing that code. MFA adds an additional factor to the mix. The three most common factors involved in MFA are normally something you know, like a password or a PIN, something you have, like a smartphone or a key fob, and something you are, like a fingerprint or facial recognition. A modern-day upgrade to MFA is known as adaptive MFA, which uses contextual information such as location, time of day, IP address, device type, and other rules to determine if additional authentication factors may need to be applied to a given user in a given situation. For example, you might be in a foreign country that might be hostile to the US. That may prompt for additional safeguards to be put in place. Privileged Access Management Solutions, otherwise known as PAMs, to monitor and secure privileged access by both human and non-human identities, scripts, applications, etc. Now, people often confuse PAMs with passwords management solutions, which shall remain nameless for now, but I'm sure you've all heard of one at some point in time. Those simply act as a safe repository for your passwords, instead of, say, on a sticky note or a Word document on the desktop of your laptop. PAMs take it a step further by automatically changing passwords on a specified time frame or acting as a proxy so that the end user never knows the password that can utilize the account to SSH or RDP into remote systems, for example. Cloud security tools, such as Cloud Security Posture Management, CSPM, Cloud Workload Protection Platforms, CWPP, and Cloud Infrastructure Entitlement Management, CIEM, to harden and monitor your cloud-based systems and data. Application security tools, such as SAST, Static Application Security Testing, DAST, Dynamic Application Security Testing, IAST, interactive security application testing, RASP, runtime application self-protection, and SCA, software composition analysis. These are the most common tools you're going to find in the AppSec category. Now, DAST and IAST may seem similar, but there's an important difference. DAST is meant to provide a simulated and outside perspective and revolves around introducing faults to test code paths on an application, usually after login, where IAST analyzes the running application using agents and sensors. Secure developer tools are also considered AppSec, and these include solutions to secure, manage, rotate, and monitor secrets and other credentials used by applications, automation scripts, and other non-human identities. And lastly, deception tech. Deception technology can take many forms, from honey systems to honey files, honey users, honey credentials, in addition to many others. These can either operate like the proverbial canary in a coal mine or like a tar pit, but the end goal is to let you know that something is awry and requires your immediate attention. Honey systems, they're decoy systems which, when interacted with, send an alert. They can either be configured to mimic a production system, such as DCO2 or domain controller 2, setting next to the real domain controller DCO1. Or you can choose to take advantage of our psychological predilection to investigate things which seem off and utilize the peacock method. This simply means you make your deception technology stand out. So if you have all your DCs in a specific subnet, put a honey system in there named DB01. That way, someone doing recon will go, what? And even if they just do a cursory port scan of it, the fact that they interacted with it means they're discovered and someone should be investigating post haste. Honey files are pretty simple. They're decoy files that send an alert when interacted with. Honey users, decoy accounts, normally an Active Directory that, you guessed it, send an alert when interacted with or used. Honey credentials, those are the ones that I consider to be pretty cool. Those are decoy credentials stored in memory that will send an alert if the LSAS process is dumped and someone or something attempts to use them. Now, for those of you not familiar with the acronym, LSAS, or the Local Security Authority Server Service, is a process in the Microsoft Windows operating system that essentially verifies users logging on to a Windows computer or server. It handles password changes, creates access tokens, and writes this Windows security log. Now that wraps up the time we have today for the presentation, but hopefully I've given you some ideas on potential solutions you can deploy in service of your defense in-depth strategy, depending upon where you and your organization find yourselves today. But if you'd like to learn more about all things Rapid7 and how we can help you with your defense in-depth strategies, feel free to reach out to sales@rapid7.com anytime. And since we've got a few minutes left, I'd like to open it up to the audience and see if you have any questions. Thank you.
Well, we definitely do have some questions. Thank you so much, Jeffrey, for that presentation. I was laughing out loud at "that's a wrap," I have to say.
The dad jokes and memes are kind of how I live my life these days. You know, as you get older, you have to concentrate on the little things.
You gotta have some fun. I see a lot of these presentations. That's the first time anyone's used a wrap image to wrap it up. So kudos to you.
No, you see Dr. Phil? I mean, come on, that one's got to be.
Yeah.
That's great.
There was a couple of really solid. I was also a big fan of Pam, the Pam image. That is just all around.
I was debating on using like something from The Office or something, but I was like, nah, you know, Pam works too.
Also good. And Deb is giving you a high five from the audience as well. We got a couple of comments from people saying thanks. I think we all appreciated and enjoyed the dad jokes. So thanks for bringing those with you today.
You are welcome.
And now Joseph says he's craving a falafel wrap, so there is that downside.
I know, some shawarma would just be, you know, killer right
hit now. The spot. Yeah, next time if you're going to show us a bunch of images of food, you have to send us all food too.
I'll pass that
all right, well, There you go. Jeffrey, we're going to jump into some questions. Before we do that, I do want to point out that we have a poll question up on the screen for you here. What we're wondering is what additional information you would like to get about the Rapid7 solution. Obviously, you know, we're getting into the sort of high level / details of small aspects of these solutions, and there's so much more to learn. And also, you're just not going to remember everything you heard. I mean, really, you get a lot of info, and it's just not all going to stick as much as we wish it would. So when you click on this poll here, what you're doing is letting Rapid7 know how they can follow up with you, what information they can send you to make your life easy, to make sure that you have the info that you need, and you're not sitting there thinking, you know, oh, shoot, what was that thing again? So click on the poll now and let Jeffrey and his team follow up with you and get you the information that you need. While you're doing that, let's do some questions. Jeffrey, you ready?
I am ready. Let's go.
Okay. I got a couple of questions in this session and also the last one. I think a lot of people are really curious about this. When we talk about all the different layers and there's all these different things, solutions and tools and strategies, and it can feel a bit overwhelming. So if you were going to give somebody some advice about where to start, or if they're only going to sort of create like a core set, a tool chest, what would you recommend as either the first step or that core tool chest, however you want to look at it?
Yeah. I mean, because again, there is, and I saw a question from Ali or Ali. I don't want to mispronounce anyone's names because it could go either way, which, you know, relates back to, you know, the 5 layers or 5 aspects of defense in depth. There's actually 7.
Yes.
So it gets a little further out than just the 5, but you know, what those core technologies would be really kind of depends on, you know, where you're at in terms of business and tech. So like, let's just break it down by functional area. So, you know, especially with the economic downturn, 2023, you know, network layer, you can get a lot of bang for your buck there with a firewall that has built-in IDS, IPS capabilities. There's plenty of vendors out there that do it. Endpoint, be it, you know, a laptop or a VDI instance, because again, people are moving into the cloud more, remote work. Next Gen AV, or what people refer to as EPP today, which is just basically Next Gen AV and EDR. You're very cloud focused. Again, cloud is great. It can be very secure, but it's very granular and kind of like the movie The Interview, you know, same, but different, but still same. And there's going to be references and memes even verbally.
Great, perfect.
So with cloud, CSPM, like we talked about, CWPP, but also, you know, something like an umbrella for web and a filter for email. But for email specifically, something that targets gray mail. So like a lot of people use Gmail and Office 365. Those are really good at detecting the bad stuff or the totally clean stuff. But everything in the middle is where it kind of gets a little, and I'm going to borrow some parlance from my English friends, a little squiffy in the middle there. So something that takes care of, you know, the stuff that doesn't necessarily fit into, you know, like, yes, it's a 98%, you know, spam confidence filter, or like, yep, that's 100% clean. That's where we kind of need to help. And there are a number of solutions on the market there for it. So, and I think got something from Jeremy, my best friend, and I use that quote from me to do all the time. It's a great movie. I could do the sound that Seth Rogen makes. That I can do it really well.
Okay, well, we have to have you back for a whole webinar of just you doing memes and impressions, obviously. I'm wondering, I'm going to kind of expand on, all right, Colm was asking the question, are there deception solutions that are set it and forget it, or do they all require constant updating? I'm wondering if you can sort of apply that out too when we're looking at Rapid7, you know, what is, because we also had a question about implementation. Can you talk to us about sort of the time and the heavy lifting of implementation, and then also, you know, is there going to be a lot of ongoing work that's required to kind of maintain these systems, or what's the support offered by Rapid7 there?
Yeah, sure. So with regards to deception technology, it should not be a heavy lift or a lot of ongoing maintenance. That's kind of the key, and that's what we base, you know, a lot of our deception technology around. It should be, I'm not going to say set it and forget it, because you do set it, and then the key with it is, you know, doing a lot of that, you know, allow listing. Because again, like let's say you have set up something like a honeypot on your network. There may be, scripts or applications that may be misconfigured that are going to be touching that honeypot when it really shouldn't be. So once you get a lot of that noise out of the initial implementation phase and things are in a steady state, then yes, that's why it becomes so high fidelity, and why if something does reach out and touch your honeypot or try and use your honey user, then it's bad, so you need to go and investigate. It's just during that initial period. And again, that period, depending on how much there is, it could be a day, it could be a week, it could be a month. It just depends on your environment of how long it takes to tune out all that noise. But then, yeah, absolutely. And especially with Rapid7 solutions, like we talked about honey credentials, that's literally a flip of a switch. The honeypot is a virtual appliance. You can deploy it really easily. Honey users literally just designate a user that you've already set up in, Active Directory. So it really is easy to set up, but again, it's just during that initial onboarding phase where you get rid of all the noise. That's where the pain is. But once you get past the pain, kind of like a Band-Aid, rip it off, you're good to go.
I love that. We are running a bit short on time. I'm going to just sneak in this one last question from Radhakishan, because I think it's a good place to sort of wrap things up. He's wondering or inquiring about what makes Rapid7 kind of stand out, wondering if you can kind of give us a key unique that you want to leave us with.
Yeah, I mean, where I would say Rapid7 definitely stands out has been its constant focus ever since, its inception, on understanding, attacker behavior, whether it's from, the Nexpose days where we're looking at how attackers are targeting vulnerabilities, up to the acquisition of Metasploit, up through, the recent acquisition of Insights and Velociraptor. It's always about understanding what attackers do because there's a concept called the Pyramid of Pain, which you can go and Google. It's like a 3-minute read, but essentially it's if you hit them where it hurts, their tactics, techniques, and procedures, then it's either going to force them to change their game or spend a lot of money to keep attacking you. And those kind of detections, those stand the test of time. Because again, you can rewrite malware, you can change your DNS, your IPs, you can do all that. But when you get in, what are you doing? You're doing recon, you're trying to move laterally, you're trying to do the same set of actions. So if you understand the behavior, then you can really hit them where it hurts. And that's where things get impactful and effective. And that's where the false positives start to go away.
I love that. Well, thank you very much, Jeffrey, again for a really entertaining presentation and a great Q&A. Before you take off or falafel wrap out, if there is any sort of first step that you would want everyone out there to know, you gave us that email address at the end of your presentation. Is that the place to get started, or what do you recommend?
Yeah, that's definitely the official way to get started. The other kind of way that I recommend is, and I don't want me to throw it out there because, again, I can get bombarded. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I have a number of connections through there. But if you do reach out that way for some one-on-one chatting, just give me like 24 hours to respond because it takes too long, and I'm usually watching some kind of lame horror movie. So you got to give me 24 hours, and then I will definitely get back to you within 24 hours. As soon as Thanksgiving ends, I'll be right there.
You have to recharge your meme list and great quote collection.
I got to get those quips.
Yeah, I hear you, man. It's a full-time job. Well, thank you so much, Jeffrey, for being here with us. Really appreciate that.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you all for joining.
All right. Well, and thank you to everyone who filled out that poll. Again, just a great way to make sure that you're getting the info you want from Rapid7. I'm also going to recommend that you head on over to the Handouts tab and make sure that you do get the Rapid7 Annual Vulnerability Report. It's the 2021 edition. So what they're doing is actually taking a deep dive into the high severity vulnerabilities that were exploited in 2021. And best of all, what we can learn from them. So it's a great resource. Please do go check that out. While you're doing that, I am going to give away another prize, and then we'll keep rolling along in our summit. So this time we're going to do a $300 Amazon gift card. I'll remind you again that you do need to be here present live at the summit in order to win. All right, so our next winner of a $300 Amazon gift card is Sebastian Quintero of Texas. Sebastian Quintero of Texas, congratulations. you've won a $300 Amazon gift card. As always, we will be in touch about claiming your prize after we wrap. Now, don't forget, for all you folks out there are lots more chances to win, plus that best question gift card from each session. Well, speaking of our next session, let's get to it. I am so excited to introduce you all to the very next presenter in today's wonderful and already off to an incredible start virtual summit. We're going to be hearing from Mark Crevieri, Technical Product Manager at Rubrik. Mark, thank you so much for being here with us at the summit today. The platform is all yours.
Thank you so much. Welcome to Securing Your Virtual Environment with Rubrik. My name is Mark Crevier. I'm a technical product manager with Rubrik, which means I've got one of the coolest jobs with one of the coolest companies. I get to advise product management and engineering from the point of view of the user to make sure that what we're putting in the product is most useful and operationally complete. That said, let's get to today's topic. We're going to be reviewing how Rubrik helps you from a ransomware event before, during, and after an attack. So let's dive right in. Shouldn't be news to anybody that cyber attacks are on the rise. We're hearing about them all the time. This is not new. And we have already a number of tools to combat it, right? On the infrastructure side, there are firewalls, there's identity management, there's endpoint security that's getting more and more sophisticated and can do threat intelligence, in real time at the endpoint. There's email protection for phishing attacks. All these things are all important components of a ransomware cyber attack combating plan. So why isn't it enough? Because the people doing these attacks, they're getting smarter all the time. They're finding new techniques. And most importantly, there's another component to these attacks that's hard to mitigate through technology. And that's the fact that the user has to interact with the data. Right? The data has to be exposed to the user for them to be able to complete their task or their job or use the product or service. So what we at Rubrik are finding is that it takes a new approach to combat these cyber attacks, and that is providing security at the point of data. Right? We're securing the data itself so that even if all those other protections that we have in place fail, your business can continue, and you're not going to have to ask tough questions like, are we going to have to send our employees home for the last time because of this? So Rubrik's Security Cloud has 3 pillars to it. So there's data resilience. That's the first pillar. That's ensuring that the data is protected from attack, right? That it's resilient. It's not going to be affected by the attackers, even if they do bypass those other symptoms or those other systems. Observability. It's great to have that data available, but what if you could do more with it? What if you could determine when a cyber attack happens? What if you could know where your sensitive data is? What if you could do forensics on it without having to do an iterative restore onto live equipment? And then the third pillar being recoverability, right? We want to be able to make sure that not only is that data secure, but you can recover quickly and with a high level of confidence that all your data is safe once you're back in production. So before we talk about before an attack, I'm going to go back in history even further before the attack and talk a little bit about how Rubrik started and where Rubrik comes from. Our founders, when they got started, they took a look at the data protection landscape and they saw a lot of complexity. If you are running or were running a legacy software and you wanted to get to, we'll call it grandfather, father, son type of protection, you had to configure a lot of jobs. You had to do your daily fulls, maybe incrementals or differentials, your weekly data protection jobs, monthly, yearly. You had to configure the retention on that. In some cases, you even had to configure separate jobs to run cleanup and groom that so that by the time you're all done with this, you end up with the state you want to be in. And you can end up with dozens, if not hundreds of jobs to accomplish that. And it's a very complicated landscape at that point. It's a lot to maintain, and it's error prone because it's so complicated. So what Rubrik introduced to combat that is the concept of the SLA domain. And I will start by describing, I'm going to describe it by first describing what it isn't, right? It isn't creating all those jobs and having to maintain those dozens or hundreds of jobs. It is a declarative end state approach. So what we're saying with that is you declare what you want your end state to look like. You say, in the example I have here, that I want to protect every 12 hours for 14 days, every day for 30 days, every month for 12 months, every year for 5 years. And instead of having to create any number of jobs to get there, Rubrik's scheduling engine does all the scheduling of that. It does the deconfliction and gets it so that by the time you're done, your end state looks like what you've described. It's flexible. Right today we're talking about your virtual environment, but the Rubrik SLA can be assigned to really any data type that you're protecting. And then it's adaptive in that you can use techniques like inheritance to make sure that it applies as new systems get added, which I'll touch on in just a moment. So drastically simpler and saves a ton of time, and that's kind of where we started. So you're already saving time, you're making your protection operations easier, right? And that's already, we're making the data more resilient by making sure it's protected well. And you can set different SLAs, right? Instead of having those dozens or 100, you could have it down to different business cases. So it's more granular for your most critical data or your high change data, or for data that is important to keep but doesn't change a lot, you can take them less frequently. You're also able to establish inheritance, right? So at a high level, I always like to recommend making sure you have kind of a catch-all. So I'll use vSphere as the example. You can set a shortish retention, low frequency SLA at a vCenter level and capture any data that shows up there. So gone are the days of having to explain that a system wasn't getting backed up because nobody added it to a backup job after it was created, right? So it gives you that security of knowing that anything that exists in that environment can be caught by a catch-all. And then you can get more granular from there. You can have more granularity at the cluster or folder, tag, or even multi-tag with some logic in order to establish really granular which are my most critical systems that need either more restore points or further out. And there's the concepts of replication. So when we think about we used to think in terms of what disasters are we likely to encounter, and we would usually think of natural disasters, your tornadoes and fires. Ransomware now being the more prevalent situation, but we also can't overlook the possibility of having to recover data in a whole different location. So with replication, we can accomplish that. And with archive, we can protect our data that doesn't necessarily need to live on site. We maybe need to have, a great deal of data or long-term retention, and we want to make use of the economies of scale of public cloud for that. So we can archive it to get to that offsite copy to keep that safe. So coming back to before the attack and talking about resilience. it starts with our immutable file system. This is not a new feature, a new enhancement. It's intrinsic to Rubrik's architecture. From day one, the file system that Rubrik created, it's an append-only file system. So once data is there on a file system, it cannot be changed. So immutability at first write, that means that as opposed to some other solutions out there where you have to make a couple hops to get to immutability, we're there right away. And same with air gap. We have a logical air gap. And you think about the traditional air gap where you have usually it's not your first copy, it's a second or third copy being put on a device that's connected to the network while data transfer happens, and then you take it off the network afterwards. Because there is no storage protocol to reach Rubrik storage, the first copy, the first write is air-gapped on site. So you don't have to pull data back from a remote site in order to have access to that immutable, logically air-gapped data. It's ready on site to restore much faster than another solution where you have to pull it back on site. The only thing that writes to Rubrik is Rubrik. And when we talk about some of the other protections and security and making that resilient, we talk about the human factor. We have native multi-factor authentication, temporary one-time password functionality. You think about SAML has been available with multi-factor authentication for quite a long time. This brings it into some of the more local authentication methods where no matter what authentication method you're using, you can secure the admin account, for example, which there are a lot of solutions that's not available on. But with Rubrik, you can secure that with multi-factor authentication even for the local accounts. This is good, especially in coordination with retention lock and two-person rules. So we talk about either compromised accounts or internal bad actors. No one can do potentially disruptive actions on their own when those are enabled. So if you need an approver to approve these actions, you're protected from one compromised account or bad acting admin. And then even if all else fails, there's intelligent data lock, which acts as an intelligent recycle bin to save that data even from admin actions. So these are all things we've done to make the system very resilient. That data is safe. We're making sure that in the event of a ransomware attack, they haven't been able to get to it. So let's talk about during a ransomware attack. And some of this is going to carry over. There's obviously overlap in some of this protection. One of those areas of overlap with observability is with our sensitive data monitoring and remediation. So it's important to know if you're in a regulated industry or you're working with regulated data like credit card information, personal health information, it's super important to know where that data lives so you can protect it. And in a perfect world, every organization knows where it is and they've taken special steps to make sure that that location is secure. But what if somebody copied it to another location? What if a machine was cloned and made it outside of that area? Wouldn't it be great to be able to know where that data lives? Well, with sensitive data monitoring and remediation, you can do that. With any data that's protected, it will scan and it will look for that sensitive data and it'll let you know where it is. This is the before. And where that transitions into the during an attack, we also have ransomware monitoring and investigation, which will, using metadata and machine learning, we can look at iteratively which files have changed, been encrypted, mass deletions, mass modifications, and tell you down to the file level what the impact is. So if you think about determining a blast radius, now you know what data is part of the compromise and you know where your sensitive data is. So you can correlate and know what your risk level is and know if that sensitive data is part of your blast radius and part of this compromised data. We also then have the capability to do some forensics on it. Backing up a step, when you are looking at our ransomware monitoring, because we know what files have been impacted, we can make sure that when you do a recovery, that those threats can be contained and quarantined so that you're not restoring data that's been impacted by ransomware back into your environment. So you can control access to that, make sure that only approved people are able to do those restores, and you can download that quarantine data into a secure quarantine analysis area for those forensics. So we're making sure that not only is your data safe, that the data that is safe is all that gets recovered. And with the other thing that Rubrik does and can do is, we work lockstep with our customers in the event of ransomware. The first thing that any Rubrik customer should do in the unfortunate event that they've been hit with ransomware is contact Rubrik support, because we have a ransomware response team. And this is not an add-on. This is not something that you have to pay for or do an engagement on. This is just something that our support team has organized to streamline any communications and remediation efforts and make sure that on a company's worst day, that Rubrik is there supporting them every step of the way. So after an attack, the attack has happened. More often than not, an attacker has been in the system for a while, and they're doing things like, they're perhaps exfiltrating data. They are getting themselves ingrained, making sure maybe they have some backdoors, going after backups, right? And before, in most cases, you're able to start restoring, there's some forensic work to be done. And traditionally, the way this works is that you restore the data to a clean environment and forensics happen on that. And if you don't find what you're looking for, or you don't find that it's clean, you go back and you restore again. And you need to have the hardware to do this, all right? You need compute and storage somewhere to accomplish this. And you've got the time it takes to do those iterative recoveries and forensics for all these data points. But with Rubrik's threat hunting capability, we can do it on the Rubrik cluster using the data that's already there and all the points in time that we can scan to see when these indicators of compromise exist. And that's IOC is an indicator of compromise. And that can be anything from, certain executables to certain file modifications or renames. And these are determined based on, industry standard YARA rules. YARA rules are, it's a definition of a specific threat. And these come from, could come from law enforcement agencies. It could come from security agencies, threat investigation companies, that can be applied to this search and really do a lot of forensics and save, not only the time for doing all the forensics, but the cost of all that equipment, and really put you in a good position to start your recovery much faster and even be able to do forensics while recoveries are happening, if your plan allows for that. So it's an incredibly powerful tool. I'm very excited that we've got it and excited to see the benefit it's going to bring to our customers. So now we've talked about, we've got the data, it's resilient, we know what the blast radius is, we know if sensitive data was part of it, so we know what our risk level to our data was. In order to start recovering, we have that quarantine, so we're not going to recover infected data. We can surgically restore down to the files that were impacted. Again, remember, we know the blast radius at the file level. So instead of having to restore entire environments, we can streamline that process and make it much more efficient by really doing it at the app and file level. And by planning ahead, we can have a blueprint for doing this in the most efficient manner possible, right? So we have orchestrated application recovery that can help with this. So this is something you set up in advance and plan, and you talk to your business leaders, your stakeholders in each area, and you determine an order of operations for the recovery. What is our most time-critical data to have operational first? And you set these blueprints and use this orchestrated recovery to, execute this pre-planned blueprint to recover your environment. And we're talking now, we're taking a process, if you were doing it ad hoc, days to weeks to minutes and hours. So the cost savings in getting your business up and running that much faster is going to be immeasurable to the success of the business and the success of the recovery. So this is Rubrik's new approach. We believe it's the next frontier in cybersecurity, is security at the point of data. And again, we're focused today on virtualization and the virtualization platforms, but Rubrik Security Cloud isn't just for your virtual environment. It's for your data, all of your data, all your company's crown jewels, whether they be in on-prem equipment, if it's in the cloud, if it's a hybrid. One pane of glass with Rubrik Security Cloud to protect all your workloads. So with that, we're going to bring it back around and see if there are any questions from the group.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mark, for that wonderful presentation. And we definitely do have a lot of questions coming in. And I know we want to get to as many of those as we can. So let's dive in. I'm going to start with this one here. What about compromised administrative accounts? Couldn't they just get in and delete everything?
Not with Rubrik, no. Following security best practices, first of all, it's very hard to compromise an account when multi-factor authentication is in use. If that system gets compromised, you can still have a two-factor rule or a two-person rule, so that you've got retention lock, and there's no way to reduce the retention without approval of a second person. And then we've also got that smart, intelligent recycle bin type capability where even after an admin deletes something in a suspicious manner, we're gonna keep it around for recovery in an emergency situation. So no, we've got very good protection even from a rogue admin.
All right. Well, Mark, thank you for that answer. A couple more questions coming in here. Let's snag this one. I've seen a few questions actually are coming in around what makes Rubrik stand out, what makes Rubrik unique. So don't all data protection solutions claim to have immutability? What makes Rubrik so special? I'm wondering if you can shed a little light on that one.
Right. Immutability, I think you'll find different descriptions of it once you start digging in, right? So I think that at some level, yeah, there is a level of immutability with most platforms, but I think that in a lot of cases, you're writing to a network target, right? And there's a protocol in use there, and there's a layer of vulnerability there. With Rubrik, because we're immutable on first write, and again, the file system itself is append only, so that immutability is native to our platform. It's not an enabled feature. It's part of the architecture. So to have that immutable copy on site, ready to restore, not only makes it more secure from an access and protocol standpoint, but it reduces the time to recovery having it on site as that first copy.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you for that. Let's try another question here. What would you say is the first thing somebody should do when they find out they've become the victim of a ransomware attack? Great question. What is their first step?
Update their resume. No, not that. Call Rubrik support, right? If you call Rubrik support, and we'll engage our ransomware response team, and that means that any escalations that need to happen are going to be streamlined. That means that communications are going to be streamlined, and support's going to be engaged 24 hours a day until that issue is resolved. So again, Rubrik is with our customers every step of the way on their worst day, and we can take the people, again, thinking as a practitioner, it's a chance to be a hero on your company's worst day.
Well, I love that. I mean, who doesn't want to be a hero in their company's time of need? Well, I think we are just about out of time here. So I'm gonna try to sneak in one more quick question, and then we'll wrap up. Mark, there are other tools for threat hunting. So why would a data protection solution want to get into that market? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I think this really speaks to Rubrik's direction in the market. Yeah, I think initially, the company started as a data protection company, but really just the focus and the direction the company as a whole is going is to be a cloud company and a data security company, because protection isn't enough. And because we've got, once we've got the data, we can do so much more with it, right? Protection, it starts with protection, right? If we weren't protecting this data, we wouldn't be able to do these other things with it in our current model. But the value that we're able to provide, I think that we're uniquely positioned to be able to provide this extremely high level of value in our observability because of the way we collect the data, because of the way we interact the data, and the intelligence we've got around it. So, yeah, it's not enough just to protect. You need to secure. And I think that's why we want to be in this game. And that's, I'm gonna steal a line from our CRO on this, and hope he's okay with it. Is that, you could say that, that's if maybe we're reacting to market trends, and I think the verbiage he used is that we're not chasing the ambulance, we are the ambulance, right? So we're here to save our customers' data, and it's the timing's right, the offering is right, and I think it's just going to get better and better.
All right, well, we're going to have to leave it there. I wish we could keep going, but we are a little short on time here. Mark, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for such an interesting presentation and for sticking around to answer some audience questions.
All right, so you can see that poll that we've got up here, wondering what additional information you would like to get about the Rubrik solutions. Obviously, we just got a lot of info from Mark there, but there's lots more to cover. So please do take a moment and fill out that poll. I'm also going to remind you to head on over to the handouts tab. You can download the handout from Rubrik. Rubrik for ransomware remediation, faster ransomware recovery from backups that cannot be compromised. So basically, how can you back up and get running as quickly as possible after an issue without loss? And this is kind of giving you a quick and easy look, just 2 pages, lots of great info, well laid out on how you can make sure that those backups that cannot be compromised are not, and how you can recover. So definitely make sure you grab that handout, take a look at that. While you're filling out the poll and downloading that handout, I'm going to very quickly give away a prize, because we have another session lined up in the wings, and I want to get rolling on that as quickly as possible. So we're going to give away one of our Amazon gift cards as well as a grand prize this time. Now, I'll remind you again that you do need to be here present live at the summit in order to qualify to win. So first up, our next winner of a $300 Amazon gift card is Aaron Sachs of Massachusetts. Aaron Sachs of Massachusetts. And our next winners, we're going to give away 2 of the iPhone 14 Plus phone, one going to Richard Calhoun of Indiana, and one going to Ed Fabian of Missouri. Ed, there's a familiar name and regular and returning guest. So congrats to you, Ed, and to Richard on your new iPhone 14 Pluses. as well as to Aaron for a $300 Amazon gift card. We'll be in touch about claiming your prizes after we wrap up. Okay, now I'm going to move things along. I'm giving you all one last second to go ahead and click on that poll if you want to get any additional information and follow it from Rubric. And okay, moving along here. Up next, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce you all to an incredible presenter and somebody that I'm sure many of you will remember. This is a returning expert presenter here, Andre Pershogan, Senior Product Marketing Manager Endpoint at CyberArk. Andre, thank you so much for being here with us again. It is always a pleasure to chat with you. I'm going to hand the mic right on over.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here with you. Thank you for your time. So as we are getting ready for a cold snap here in Boston, I'm talking about the topic that I absolutely love, and it falls so nicely into the narrative of defense in depth or layered security, whichever way you call it. I'm talking about how to implement foundational endpoint security controls. With the amazing presenters before me, you can probably see, and you know, because you are security practitioners, that security is so multifaceted. There are so many angles that, and so many things that can go wrong that there is, you probably know this by now, that there is no silver bullet. You have to have different layers of security. You have to have backup, you have to educate your employees, you have to account for vulnerabilities and mitigate those, and you also have to have foundational endpoint security controls. So I think my presentation is very simple, right? So all you need to do is unprivilege the attacker. Privileged attacker, and the privilege when a mistake happens, the privilege is such a force multiplier. It can make a very simple mistake into real drama, right? And what we say here at CyberArk with APM is you absolutely need to remove local admin rights from everybody in the organization, and that includes your help desk, and that includes your admins. And instead, you need to implement mechanisms that allow them to go about their work, but without being in the local admin group and having actually least privilege. So this whole presentation is about the notion of unprivileging the attacker. If there's one takeaway that you can, take back home, is this one: unprivilege the attacker. Do not let a simple mistake turn into a disaster. So those are the very foundational endpoint security and identity security controls that are critical and you have to have. Like, however you consider your, crown jewels being on top of a pyramid or, being on the bottom of a cave, the very entrance to the pyramid or to the cave is protected by the least privilege. And you have to have least privilege. You have to have application control, especially on servers, right? You have to defend credentials that are stored on the endpoints. We'll talk more about this, and security tokens and cookies in the browser, right? And protection from ransomware, which is, which could be very different. It's like how your endpoint can get compromised, how you get ransomware delivered to the endpoint, how it gets executed, what it does after then, how it talks to CNC, how it exfiltrates the data, and how it delivers the impact. Actually encrypts the data. So we're going to talk about this in this presentation. So privilege impact, is it really positive or negative? One thing we can say for sure is that the impact of privilege on the area of attack is tremendous, right? According to our internal test that we did back in 2020, we analyzed Microsoft vulnerabilities, and we found that if you just remove local admin rights, and if you attempt to exploit those vulnerabilities as a standard user, they would be, more than half of those vulnerabilities would be diffused from the get-go. Those vulnerabilities are not exploitable as a standard user. So already there, you kind of, cut the area of attack in half. So depending on how you approach the privilege, and there could be multiple ways, right? You can do an ostrich approach where you just bury your head in sand and say, well, my users need local admin rights to go about their business, right? My developers are very loud about this. I cannot interfere with the, DevOps practices and whatnot. They need their IDEs running. They need their debuggers running, so I cannot do anything about this. My CEO was complaining the other day that they cannot install a new program, and I had to give local admin rights to them. That's one approach. Another approach that we advocate for is that you really start working towards the least privilege. And there are tools out there that can help you with that. And if you choose the right tool, if you follow the best practices, you're going to be amazed how easy it is to implement and how easy it is to actually empower your users and deliver such a great improvement, not only the way they work every day, but to your security posture as well. So I like to consider MITRE ATT&CK, right? This is that a lot of security people do. They kind of look at this map and the kill chain and kind of pick where specific TDPs that kind of pertain to the security area we work on. So I want to say that least privilege actually impacts a lot of MITRE ATT&CK TTPs. And I suggest that we focus today on ransomware, just because ransomware is so similar to any other kind of attack, with basically the most significant difference being the last stages of attack, where the data exfiltration happens, if it's some of a recent strain ransomware, or impact happens where data gets encrypted or wiped. But the rest of the kill chain is really the same, right? The ransomware needs to get delivered to your endpoint. It needs to get executed somehow. It needs to run. It probably needs to gain some kind of persistence if they got to do any kind of server or network-borne encryption, if they need to analyze the amount of data that you have on the endpoint, if they're gonna go after your shadow copies, if they're gonna go after your backup agents, what kind of data they need to encrypt. Are they going after files, or are they going after MBRs, the master boot record of the hard drives? Are they going after file shares on the servers? Are they going after your cloud? Are they exfiltrating data? If yes, how they do this in a way that they don't trigger your network security solution, or they don't trigger your endpoint security solution? Like how many days this is going to happen for? So all of that is similar to reconnaissance, to getting persistence, to tampering with your security solutions. And so it's very beneficial to look at ransomware as an example of a high impact attack, right? So with least privilege, we want to say that a lot of stages in this kill chain are impacted by least privilege in a positive way, where when the attacker drops an executable on your machine, they're not able to execute it because the file is not whitelisted. If it still gets executed somehow and it manages to bypass your endpoint security solution such as EDR or EPP, can it talk to the server? Can it scan the network? Can it run an exploit? Can it enumerate the data, right? All of that stuff is where least privilege actually makes sure that the ransomware faces increasing friction when it goes about the bad things it's going to do. And, some of the things that we don't think about but we really should, is that the ransomware, being often a service, being often a package for a specific account there, it can not just go about encryption, but it can spend time and make sure the impact is actually delivered, and that's a significant impact to organization. And that I would like to just highlight, one of the branches of MITRE ATT&CK, and that's defense evasion set of techniques, tactics, and procedures. So defense evasion, we have here, just a few examples: abuse elevation control mechanism, bypass user account control, domain policy modification, group policy modification, disable or modify tools, disable or modify system firewall, go and clear Windows event logs. And you can kind of extrapolate from here, right? So it doesn't have to be system firewall. Maybe it can be a different agent. Maybe it's an EDR agent. Maybe it's a backup agent. So when the user who's compromised is a local admin, it's so much easier for the attacker to actually do all of those things. And I like this very simple image on the right, but it really highlights the value of defense in depth. That when security agents work with one another to deliver this impenetrable set of safety nets for you and your organization. As an example, we have quite a few customers who do a very simple thing, right? Probably 20 minutes of your time while you're eating pizza. They run a simple script on the side of our endpoint privilege manager agent to check on EDR agent. Just, keep alive, right? If the agent is responding, everything's fine. If it's not responding, then we should raise the alarm and go investigate why the agent on particular machine is not responding. And the same thing is done on the EDR side. EDR also does this every now and then and checks on EPM agent. And that hand-holding and checking and looking after one another, it's such a tremendous help in preventing a cyber attack and cyber breach. The other thing that we do is, because we don't allow users to run specific commands elevated, so they can now, when you implement this privilege, they cannot access the security, different security agents in elevated mode. So they cannot tamper with security mechanisms that are already on the endpoint. This is real defense in depth, and this is really layered protection right there. So let's talk about a couple of myths right now. Attackers don't have privileges, right? So I love this one. Is people say, well, we use standard Windows protection. The attackers come from the web browser. They come as standard users. They are not local admins. They cannot do much. Well, they can, right? Because there are exploits and there are 0 days, and the first thing they do usually is to gain more privileges. If they're able to get a foothold as a standard user, you can bet that the first thing they will try to elevate their privileges, and suddenly they are now high privileged user that can go and do anything on the machine, right? 2 years ago, I believe, Senate hearing, EDR vendor was asked by senator, like, why did your agent not raise an alarm for 11 days? Why did your solution not raise an alarm for 11 days? And the response from the vendor was that the attacker had local admin rights. And basically the whole notion of security there falls apart. Once the attacker has local admin access to the machine, there's very little that you can do as a security solution to block them from achieving their goal, right? And this is not a jab at EDR. EDR is amazing. You should probably have an EDR. It's not a jab at a backup agent, nothing like that. But again, giving users high privileges because of reasons, right? And I believe you have very legitimate reasons to give them high privileges, but that is such a force multiplier for an attacker. And again, there are ways that you can give users privileges, but not making them local admins. So a proper solution that allows you to elevate programs in the background, to create policies that allow different users different access to applications, different access to resources such as networks, such as your sensitive data. It allows you to implement that framework of least privilege that you can then fine-tune if you need to, right? But that is such a great step towards better security, such a noise reduction for other security solutions, because if the user cannot is not local admin rights, then suddenly you're getting few notifications in other security solutions. So another myth is once you remove local admin rights and you have standard user, then you're good, right? Like the attacker cannot do anything. Unfortunately, that's not true as well, and you have to account for least privilege even if you are thinking about a standard user. And there are different ways of how attackers go about this. Again, I mentioned exploits, and you want to control for that. But also think about cookies, right? Think about security tokens. Think about credentials that are stored on machines. Those are very tasty targets for attackers. And so we were talking, actually I have a link probably on the last slide to the webinar called No More Cookies for You. We have an interview there with the VP of our Red Team Services, who says, recently we kind of pivoted a little bit. We used to go after domain controller. We used to go after servers. Now all we need to do is just to compromise cookies. And this is an attack that bypasses MFA completely, and we get access to all kind of stuff, Salesforce, security solution configuration agents, cloud configuration consoles, SCADAs, bank accounts. Like, you don't really need to be an admin anymore, just because such a tremendous part of the workload has shifted into online platforms and online applications, that you can go after those, right? You can go after GitHub accounts where you have, some, well, hopefully not you, but some companies have hardcode credentials, right? They have source code in there. They have private repositories that if you access as a company employee, they are not suddenly private anymore for you. So really, really, really least privilege and credential theft protection control should be a significant part of your endpoint security strategy and your cybersecurity strategy. So how you can enforce least privilege on the endpoint? Well, first of all, obviously you need a tool set that allows you to gain visibility and to understand what privileged accounts are there, to be able to enumerate the accounts that have privilege on the endpoint. You want to remove those, and then you want to give your users something back. So what you can do is you can elevate applications that we call unhandled applications. That means if you don't have a policy that handles an application, says this application needs to run elevated or this application cannot run, then this application is unhandled. Also, you can think of this in terms of gray listing, right? It's kind of gray listing. So you can set up a discovery period where you can elevate gray listed applications or unhandled applications. And now you can start watching what your users gain access to, right? Because now that you have mechanism of elevating applications, now you can keep track of those. You can do this for audit purposes, but also you can use this to establish the baseline and to get understanding of the usage patterns that your users have. From there, you can go and start creating policies, right? We give you some default policies that you can get out of the box and activate with just a couple of clicks, minimal configuration, if any. But then you can take that and start on creating this role specific, right? So you can create profiles as many as you want. You want 4, by all means. You want 10, you can 100, whatever works for you. And then you can really fine tune what specific users have access to. Probably there is no reason for your finance people to run debuggers on the machines, right? Or elevated PowerShell. But for your developers, probably there is. Just-in-time elevation. If you need your service team to go and do service on server, you can give them access to privileged accounts for, let's say, 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever they need this for. And you can automate this completely with solutions like ServiceNow, and you can completely automate that workflow. Credential defense, we talked about this. Again, credentials stored in memory, credentials stored in the operating system, credential stores, third-party applications such as PuTTY or FileZilla, cookies in the browser. You want to put defenses around this as well, right? Ransomware protection, CyberArk APM, that's our solution, Endpoint Privilege Manager, adds to ransomware protection. So whatever you have, you should back up religiously, right? You should have your antivirus or next-gen antivirus. You should have your firewall. But you also should have something that we do, access control, that puts a boundary around sensitive data, and it says if you are using an application that is not an authorized data handler, we will not let you actually even touch the sensitive data. So you cannot exfiltrate this. You cannot encrypt this. We can say that unhandled applications, again, gray listing, right? They cannot access network. They cannot talk to internet at all. So suddenly, if you introduce a new executable, which is ransomware, it cannot talk to the command and control. It cannot go and do encryption over the network. It cannot touch the data. So it cannot run elevated and disable your shadow copies. So that suddenly is an additional layer of security that can help you in case you are targeted by ransomware. And then privilege deception. So one of the latest breaches, I believe I read a write-up where the attacker was able to gain access to the company PAM tool. And the way they did it is they were, moving laterally, and they found a script on the server that had hard-coded credentials to the PAM tool. So what if the same situation happened and there was a script on the server, but it had instead credentials that are credential lures, and the attacker tried to use that? And you would see that alarm in your console saying that, hey, somebody's trying to use those fake credentials that you have on the server. Nobody should use. Suddenly Suddenly you can go into the response mode, and you can, take steps to stop the attack, roll it back, investigate, and suddenly the impact is much smaller for that cybersecurity incident. So a couple of things we have for you here. Obviously, you can always visit cyberark.com and cyberark.com/EPM, but you're welcome to explore cyberark.com as well. We always suggest that you work with us and request a demo. This is a great opportunity for you to have one-on-one with our system engineers, ask them questions that are relevant to you. If not, if you like doing things on your own, there's a 30-day free trial. You can set up a couple of workloads in the cloud, or you can use your own machine. Please don't use trial in production, but again, you're a security practitioner, you know better. Free trial, you can use it, set up a few machines and look at the default policies, play around with this. Hopefully you like it. If you need help, again, I highly suggest that you request a demo. And this great webinar that I mentioned, done by our labs team, who are our security researchers and our VP of red teaming, the guy who attacks our customers and get paid for this. It's called No More Cookies for You, and they go in real details of how non-privileged user can actually compromise security of a company. So that's all I have. Thanks for your time again. Thanks for your interest, and please do engage with us.
Andre, I have to say, I love the no more cookies. That's that's great. Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation, a lot of great information, and I know we've got some questions coming in that we want to jump into, but before we do that, I'm first going to just very quickly throw those links back up. Last chance to click on those links. Make sure that you get those, open those up and save those tabs for later, or download and hold on to them, because in just a second here, I'm going to move over to our poll. Last chance to click. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and moving. Okay, so what I want to know is what additional information you would like to get about the CyberArk solution. And this information goes right to CyberArk, and it is how they know to follow up with you to make sure that you can get the information that you need. So if you had a question that, we'll get to as many as we can today, but if we don't get to your question, this is a great way to make sure that you get the information you want. If you're also, maybe you need to share some of this information with other people on your team, you need to put together a presentation or just let people know some of the things that you're looking at, this is a great way to get that information. Make sure that you have everything at your fingertips. Just click on the poll and CyberArk will send you what you need. While you folks are doing that, Andre and I are going to jump into some questions. Now, we're very short on time, unfortunately, so I'm going to have to limit it to one, which is too bad because there's a lot of great questions here. But Andre, I'm wondering if you could, we'll go fast. Wondering if you could shed a little light on, the difference between an EPM and what that might provide that an EDR doesn't, or EDR tools don't, and why someone out there might be looking at an EPM.
Yeah, folks, it's really simple. Those solutions are complementary. There are very few things that they do together. And again, you can have multiple layers of doing the same. But you usually don't use EDR to run a report on your privileged users, right? You usually don't use EDR to remove local admin rights. You usually, I will say all EDRs are different as well as all EPMs are different. But most of the EDRs don't do credential theft protection. They just don't. Least privilege framework, again, not something that EDR does. Application control usually sits with endpoint protection platforms, but we also provide quite different application control. Ransomware protection, I mentioned that we provide an additional layer. EDR does do ransomware protection, but it does it differently. It tries to actually draw a verdict for any running process or file. We don't do that. We only care about if the application or process trying to access a sensitive data, is it on the list of the good applications? Not. So together, hand in hand, EDR and EPM are an amazing set of endpoint security, and you should really have both. But I suggest that you start with the foundational endpoint security control. This way, your EDR will generate so much less noise than without.
I like that answer. Yeah, not necessarily one or the other, both in conjunction. Andre, that is a very, very helpful presentation. Again, sorry that we don't have any more time to dig into questions. There are some great questions here if you have some time to stick around on live chat. And either way, we will make sure that all of these questions get over to the CyberArk team. So keep those coming in. Last question for you. You gave us some links before. Andre, if somebody wants to get started with CyberArk, they want to jump in, what do you recommend as a first step?
Yeah, I always suggest the demo, just because there's so much more value that you can get from it in just spending half a time with our expert. But if not, go to cyberark.com/EPM and explore. If you want us to reach out to you, by all means, leave us your information, and we'll be happy to talk. We do have the white paper as a resource available to you, I believe, here in the interface. And in general, if you go to cyberark.com/EPM resources, then you would see many more resources, and you can spend hours and days going through those.
Well, amen to that. Everyone go spend hours and days exploring cool resources. Andre, thank you so much for a really wonderful presentation and for taking some time to stick around and answer some questions. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And as Andre just mentioned, there's a white paper in the handouts tab for you, so I'm going to highly recommend that you go over and check that out. It's why EDR isn't enough to stop cyber attacks. So you can explore how the CyberArk Endpoint Privilege Manager is going to tackle some of those EDR gaps. So this is really filling in that last question that we were talking about with Andre. Very interesting read. Please go download that and save that to read later. While you're filling out the poll and grabbing that handout, I am going to very quickly give away a prize. Then we're going to move into our last presentation of the day. I wish we could keep going. But up next, we have a $300 Amazon gift card. I'll remind you again that you do need to be here present at the summit in order to win. Our next lucky winner of a $300 Amazon gift card is Greg Wood of Utah. Greg Wood of Utah. Congratulations, Greg. As always, we'll get in touch about claiming your prize after we wrap. Now, there's one more chance to win after our next presentation. Plus, we have that best question gift card from each session. So keep those questions coming in. Keep in mind that we are taking a look at them after we wrap. So even if it doesn't come up in the live Q&A, you are still entered just by asking those questions. All right, well, thank you to everyone who's filled out that poll. I'm going to move things along now. Up next, as I said, our last presentation of the day. I can't believe we're here already. Luckily, we are definitely going out with a fun one. We're going to be chatting with Cisco Secure. I'm very excited to introduce you to our last two presenters in today's virtual summit, Matthew Brooks, Product Marketing Manager Duo at Cisco Secure, and Kedar Hiramas, Product Marketing Manager Umbrella at Cisco Secure. So two awesome speakers. Should be a great presentation. I see David just posted to say he's pretty excited about this one. So David, without any further ado, I'm going to hand things over. Matt and Kedar, thank you so much for being here to wrap us up. Kedar, I think you were going to start us out today, so I'm going to hand the mic over to you. The platform is all yours.
All right. So, foremost, we'd like to say thank you, everyone, for listening from wherever you are across the world. I'm excited to be here. Cybersecurity and authentication of users is an important discussion. I'm Kedar, and I'll be talking about Umbrella.
Hey, and I'm Matt. I'll be focusing on Duo.
All right. So, moving to the cloud and securing applications and data globally is paramount to protect your business. Bad actors are always looking for ways to exploit the reality of digital communication. Zero trust, really reflects this evolving threat landscape and has become a central framework for security practitioners to plan their defenses. We'll discuss Cisco's approach to zero trust with Cisco Umbrella and Cisco Duo together, as well as how users get a comprehensive security solution for internet access and cloud applications. We'll also discuss a Hitachi use case. Before we start, moving on to the next slide, let's kick it off with some trivia, please, to break the ice. In Back to the Future, how much energy is needed to pass through the flux capacitor? Any answers out there? Any guesses out there? Matt, I know you know this.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I had to look up the quantity. But I knew the gigawatts. It's 1.21 gigawatts.
Whoa, gigawatts? What the heck's a gigawatt?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a lot of energy. I think I researched it. It can power like 1 million houses or 100 million light bulbs. So I'm guessing you asked that question because we're going to be talking about a lot of security goodness today.
Exactly. I'm just having my Marty McFly moment here. All right, let's get the show on the road. You ready? Let's go. So why Cisco? We've been here since December 1984. I mean, we've consistently ranked as one of the top cybersecurity companies in the world. It is this dynamic moxie that has really led us to be ahead of the curve while also being a leader in technology. Our mission is simple. We want to power an inclusive future for all. We build lasting relations through innovative technologies, as well including Cisco Umbrella and Duo Security.
Yeah, I mean, those are all great points, Kedar. There's a few more that stick out to me. I mean, first is Cisco acquisitions. Over the time frame since the inception of Cisco, they've acquired and integrated hundreds of companies, literally. And, many companies struggle with mergers and acquisitions, but Cisco's demonstrated expertise at M&A and is really the gold standard for it. And that's also one of the reasons why Cisco is a leading global brand. And that's not just among tech companies, but among, Fortune 100 companies across all verticals. Also Cisco was named #1 among the 100 best companies to work for by Fortune, which I think is also, one of the reasons why Cisco is able to acquire and retain a vast group of subject matter experts, the ones that we call colleagues, Kedar. The company is also great at transferring that SME knowledge to customers through a massive network of education and certification centers. And recently, Cisco published the 3rd volume of its security outcomes report, where, using data gathered from over 4,700 security professionals across 26 countries, the company uncovered several success factors that can boost cyber resilience. Coming out of the pandemic, something really important and top of mind for CISOs. And the most challenging security resilience outcome was recruiting and retaining talented security personnel. So, if a customer is talking to buying a point solution from a startup without that broad kind of training network, you have to wonder, how do they go about training their staff to begin with? Or if they leave that company after 6 months to a year, down the road, how do they hire or retrain staff? And I want to bring up one more point about Cisco that comes to mind, which is really its breadth and scalability of our product offerings. Through those successful acquisitions and through organic development, Cisco has a broad set of security offerings. And these products work for the smallest to the largest enterprises. Early last year, Cisco announced the Cisco Security Cloud that will provide a global security network accessible from customer premises to across major infrastructures as service providers. And for many of the reasons we just discussed, Cisco is uniquely positioned to deliver that. And a significant part of its capabilities will include Cisco Umbrella and Cisco Duo functionality that we'll talk more about today. But first, let's get started by discussing some fundamental building blocks. Kedar, what can you tell us about the zero trust security model that we hear a lot about these days?
So, what is, zero trust? Cisco Zero Trust offers really a comprehensive solution to secure all access across your applications and environment from any user, device, and location. This complete zero trust security model allows you to mitigate, detect, and respond to risks across your environment. It's a strategic approach to security on the concept of eliminating trust from an organization's network architecture, as trust is neither binary nor permanent, and we shouldn't assume that internal entities are trustworthy. They can be directly managed to reduce security risk, or that checking them one time is enough. Zero trust prompts you to question your assumptions of trust at every access attempt. Traditional security approaches assume that anything inside the corporate network can be trusted. A zero trust model considers all resources to be external and continuously verifies trust before granting only the required access. With Cisco Duo Zero Trust, you establish trust, enforce trust-based access, and verify trust continuously. You gain better visibility across your users, devices, networks, and applications because you're verifying their security states with every access request. You can also reduce your organization's attack surface by segmenting resources and only granting the absolute minimum access needed.
Kedar, you made a movie reference to kick off the webinar, and that description of zero trust made me think of the circle of trust from Meet the Parents. Remember that movie with Robert De Niro and Ben Stiller?
Ben Stiller, of course. Can't love that movie.
Yeah, great. And, it was about evaluating worthiness to participate in a family. And our zero trust model is really about different stages of evaluating trustworthiness to access and use corporate resources. Managing trust, it's a solid approach to strong security. It's really not a new concept, but it arose because that old security model stopped working. We used to put all of our security at the perimeter edge and left the soft, gooey center of systems where we assume trust. The growth of the cloud era has steadily moved workloads outside that perimeter. And similarly, the pandemic moved a lot of branch users outside of it. So, with workloads and endpoints outside of the perimeter, it no longer made sense to have one, but all of those objects still needed to be protected. In the Cisco Security Outcomes Report, Volume 3, that came out recently, one of the success factors to achieving security resilience was to maximize zero trust adoption. It found that respondents with mature zero trust implementations boosted their security resilience rating by 30% over organizations that hadn't started that journey. And also found that Secure Access Service Edge, or SASE, which offers a strategy to converge networking and security into a cloud-delivered service, simplify operations and remain resilient in the face of ever-changing business demands, it correlated with higher success rates for 8 out of 9 desired security resilience outcomes. And overall security resilience scores that were on average 15% higher than those that had no plans or progress at all on the SASE front. And Cisco expands on Gartner's definition of SASE to include advanced threat detection and response capabilities, among other components. And organizations with Cisco SASE implementations were even more resilient, nearly doubling their scores over the baseline of organizations that hadn't started rolling out SASE. So, Kedar, can you tell us more about Cisco's SASE solution?
Yeah, absolutely. So, when we talk about, Umbrella, what is Umbrella, right? So Cisco Umbrella really it's a cloud-delivered security platform that secures internet access and controls cloud app usage across networks, branch offices, and roaming users, further really expanding Cisco's ambitions of Secure Access Service Edge, SASE, unifying security and network functionality in the cloud. Umbrella unifies secure web gateway, cloud-delivered firewall, DNS layer security, and cloud access secure broker, CASB functionality into a single cloud solution. Umbrella also integrates with Cisco SD-WAN to provide security and policies for direct internet access at branch offices. Many of our customers love Cisco's SD-WAN integration as it can be rolled out remotely in minutes, and users really get protection just as quickly. Umbrella also includes threat intelligence, remote browser isolation, that's RBI for you baseball fans, data loss prevention, cloud malware detection, and acts really as a secure on-ramp to the internet to provide protection against threats for users anywhere they connect. The secure web gateway prevents access to potentially dangerous or prohibited sites anywhere users go, and can be enabled per user and for devices, per production equipment or sensor. It helps to protect against threats, including malware, ransomware, C2 callbacks, with no added latency. It also provides visibility into internet activity across all locations and users. And this is important specifically because Internet of Things and data utilization amid the transition towards smart factories, production equipment, and sensors really transmit operating status data or other systems via the internet, right? And so Cisco Umbrella, can monitor these devices to see if they're transmitting data to correct destinations, and of course checks for unauthorized activities, really minimizing the risk of information leakage.
Yeah, Kader, you discussed, several security protections provided by Umbrella. And as you know, with the perimeter gone, the attack surface has increased, which is why we need that additional protection and why zero trust architectures are being adopted by customers. The first step of the zero trust journey for many organizations is verifying users and devices through multi-factor authentication. This is where we get into what Duo brings to the table. Among our security outcomes study respondents, rolling out MFA correlated to a 11% improvement in security resilience scores. And Duo is the world's zero trust identity solution that protects access to all applications for any user and device from anywhere. It's cloud-based and it's designed to be easy to use, administer, and deploy while providing complete endpoint visibility and control. And Duo verifies users' identity with strong MFA paired with deep insight into your users' devices. And Duo gives you the policies you need to limit access on endpoint or user risk. Duo provides leading MFA protocol support, including standards like FIDO WebAuthn to enable methods including hardware keys and biometrics. And with support for FIDO2, Duo prevents session hijacking through phishing attacks by requiring channel binding. And it also prevents man-in-the-middle attacks by requiring source binding. On top of that, Duo supports passwordless authentication, which allows our customers to eliminate the issues with passwords altogether. Duo also provides phishing-resistant MFA for the popular push authenticator by incorporating number matching, which ensures that a user actually trying to authenticate on their device is the user, not a hacker in a remote location. So we talked a bit about Umbrella and Duo individually. Why are they better together? Well, both provide first line of defense protection, securing users and their endpoints, access to apps and data. And as we discussed, both have origins in zero trust. So let's look back at the overall zero trust functions we discussed to manage trust throughout the life cycle of user sessions and discuss some of the use cases where each of them apply. The first is to establish trust by verifying users and devices and increasing visibility. So systems like Cisco Secure Endpoint that manage endpoint operating systems may establish whether there are any existing threats. Duo trusted endpoints can communicate directly with it and may be configured to prohibit authentication if the device status is out of compliance. At the same time, it can also be used if there's device enrollment as an indication of whether it's a corporate device, which may be configured as a condition to allow authentication altogether. Irrespective of whether the device is enrolled, especially for BYOD devices, Duo Device Health app can verify whether essential systems and components are safe to establish trust, such as whether the operating system or the browser need to be patched, or whether things like storage encryption or host-based firewall are enabled. And Duo risk-based authentication can dynamically use device posture signals or context to determine whether stronger authenticators are required, such as verified Duo Push, biometric authenticators like Windows Hello or Apple Touch, or even roaming security keys.
So let me cut in there. So, and when it comes to Cisco secure email endpoints, this also will be protected from a significant threat factor. But if users, their personal email or just unguided surfing leads them to click on a phishing link, a Cisco Umbrella will block the connection, log the threat, and notify the users immediately. Nevertheless, if a user inadvertently navigated to a phishing site that feigns authentic controls, Duo FIDO will block the identification and establish trust from its proceedings.
Right, Kader. And then, so on top of that, the second phase of this circle of trust model is enforcing trust access, to grant the appropriate level of access and enforce access policies based on the zero trust principle of least privilege. So here, other Cisco security components may be invoked, like Cisco ICE, that can be used to establish north-south segmentation, or Cisco Secure Workload to establish that east-west micro-segmentation to mitigate the risk of lateral movement in the event of attack. And then third in this zero trust circle is change is inevitable, especially when it comes to risk, and that it comes to continuously verifying trust by reassessing trust level and adjusting access accordingly after initial access has been granted. Here I know Cisco Umbrella is going to continuously inspect and verify session payload for any threats to endpoints, corporate systems, or data for the life cycle of user sessions. And then fourth in this, you could say, if you will, the fourth pillar in this zero trust, this strategic zero trust model is responding to changes in trust by investigating and orchestrating response to potential incidents with increased visibility into suspicious changes in level of trust. Here, Umbrella and Duo, they both constantly feed threat data to Cisco SecureX. This is the company's extended detection and response solution, which delivers visibility into data across networks, clouds, endpoints, and applications, while applying analytics and automation to detect, analyze, hunt for, and remediate today's and tomorrow's threats. And, getting back to the security outcome study, it found a whopping 45% better overall security resilience score in organizations with progress toward XDR. For Duo, it starts with Trust Monitor, which ingests and then analyzes authentication telemetry data in real time to build user profiles, which it then compares to future login attempts. And it notes any login attempt that deviates from normal login behavior as potentially suspicious. And then it relays all that information to SecureX, giving those security operations analysts the ability to correlate authentication activity with other networking inspection activity relayed by Umbrella, overall giving them greater security visibility into potential threats. So, I can only imagine the challenges dealing with a real-time threat. If you have to communicate with service teams from multiple companies, how would you even begin to correlate that data?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, Umbrella really provides defense, against threats. I mean, wherever users access the internet delivers visibility into all cloud services, across your environment with the ability to block, risky applications. Duo's multi-factor authentication, MFA, lets you verify the identity of all users before granting access to corporate applications. And this is all delivered from the cloud, really for fast deployment. Umbrella and Duo enable you to uncover shadow IT, secure the use of sanctioned cloud applications, and offer really powerful protection against phishing, malware, crypto mining, and other threats. Crypto has obviously been pretty big in the news lately, right? So, I promise no SBF jokes here, but stealing cryptocurrency is constantly under surveillance. For example, like if I were to set up an Amazon account, spin up a software in AWS, it'll cost me $1,000 to run the server, as well as if I try to mine a Bitcoin, maybe I'll make $20. But however, criminals, they aim to really steal company resources. I mean, think about a determined bad actor who breaks into a Fortune 500 company's resources and gets access to the multi-cloud network and the virtual network and spins up malware on these thousands of virtual systems to mine a Bitcoin. An overhead cost of zero, of course, because that's not your system, plus $20 times thousands of virtual machines. I mean, you got yourself a pretty lucrative scam.
Yeah, it's really all about the money, isn't it? I mean, as long as there's more to be made, there are going to be more threats.
I mean, I feel kind of like Rod Titwell and Jerry Maguire, it's show me the money.
Yeah.
Let's get back to this. Umbrella and Duo, can prevent and block this from happening. I mean, lots of customers worry about visibility. They want to know about reporting. They want to know what happens really inside the cloud. This allows you to lose the availability to see these trends, right? Umbrella does this well. We are cloud native on both sides. We've got APIs to integrate with other services. We report all activity and trends and really authenticate each user's login. So you see all these transactions of what is going on. So, what do customers really say about Cisco Umbrella plus Duo? I mean, people always want to know about the numbers, right? They always want to know, show me the stats. And I'll just say it, the numbers don't lie. Come on. I mean, we protect over 800,000 networks, 67 million mailboxes, and 87 million endpoints. The sheer volume of data we monitor is truly unmatched, and we resolve over 620 billion daily DNS requests, representing all markets, geos, and protocols. I mean, this really gives Cisco, it gives us an unprecedented view of the internet. I mean, Cisco truly delivers a multi-cloud enterprise security platform so you can build your future on. It's obvious organizations, around the world trust our technology. And one of them, happens to be Hitachi. Here's a quote from Hitachi's GM. He says, Cisco is a dependable partner who can share the same vision and help us tackle difficult challenges. We can do this together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a big endorsement. Hitachi is a huge, successful global company.
Massive company. It's a huge company. And Hitachi is working to restructure they're working to restructure their security infrastructure. Because users, devices, systems, and data, it was scattered widely inside and outside the company's network, due to really a diversified workforce of people working from home and across the globe. Hitachi partners with us to enhance its security infrastructure to ensure strict authentication of users and devices using a zero trust architecture. So really take it from the top. Some of the initial challenges include cyber attacks, naturally, a group-wide security policy for various subsidiaries, and of course the digital pivot, right? Diversified work styles and movement to the cloud expanded the need for protection.
Yeah, Kader, it sounds like Hitachi was experiencing one of the last challenges mentioned in the security outcome study to achieve security resilience, which was to simplify hybrid cloud environments. The study found that there was a 15% difference in the average resilience scores across hybrid cloud environments that are simpler versus harder to manage. It also found that larger organizations are 3 times as likely to rate their environment as complex and difficult to manage, meaning their move to the cloud could translate into a bigger hit to security resilience if not managed well with the right partner.
Thanks, everyone.
Well, thank you. Boy, Kader and Matt, they really take directions while I sent them a note that we're short on time, and they wrapped it up real fast there. Okay, well, thank you guys for joining us. And as I said, we are a bit short on time, but the guys are going to stick around and answer some questions on live chat with the time that we've got left in our summit. And then again, we will also make sure that we are getting all of those questions asked over to the Cisco Secure team. In the meantime, because we aren't going to be able to get into a live Q&A session, I'm going to recommend that you really take advantage of the poll in this session in particular. Make sure that you let Cisco Secure know what additional information you would like to get, how they can follow up with you, what info they can send, and make sure that you have the information that you need to kind of move forward and maybe start thinking about making some decisions for your organization and hopefully Cisco Secure kind of fitting in there. If you also are looking to learn a little bit more, and speaking of kind of seeing if it's a good fit for you, if you click on the link in your Handouts tab, there's a 14-day free trial of Cisco Umbrella. We all know that the best way to get to know a solution is to dig in, to start playing around. So this is the perfect chance to do that. So please do go and check out that handout. Now, for those of you counting at home, you know that now would be the time to get into a prize giveaway. And I am going to do that. But before I head into the prizes, our very last prizes of the day, I actually have one tiny little ask for you all. we're collecting a little bit of information on ransomware so that we can put this together and obviously bring some of this information back to all of you. So we're trying to get some high-level ideas of where your organization is at when thinking about ransomware and ransomware preparedness. And then we're going to put this together both for ransomware.org and also to kind of bring to these webinars and let you all know, give you guys a little bit of a temperature check. Where is the community at right now, and where do you think you fit in terms of preparedness across the industry? So I'm going to ask you just a few questions. They're poll questions. We're not tracking by specifics. We're not going to put like your name and company next to any of this information. So please do be honest and don't worry about, representing your company right now. We just want to get an idea of where you're at. So I'm going to move this forward here. So what we're looking for is, do you believe that your organization is ready for a ransomware attack? And the answers are yes, no, maybe, or oh, no. Nope. So give us a little bit of a response back now. Let us know whether or not you think your organization is ready for a ransomware attack. And I'll give you an idea. What I'm seeing is about pretty much a 50-50 split between yes and maybe. So lots of people kind of feeling positive, but a little slightly more pulling ahead saying, maybe not totally sure. Okay, well, thank you to everyone who filled that one out. Next question for you. Do you believe ransomware will continue to be a serious threat in 2023? Yes, no, or you know what? I'm not sure. Not sure. Too many variables, can't tell. Let us know what you're thinking. Yes, no, not sure. Do you believe ransomware will continue to be a serious threat? Again, this is just kind of your gut feeling. Obviously, there's lots of different opinions out there. I think we've even heard a few different opinions today, so let us know. Okay, looking like we're at about 90-some% saying that they do think it will be, so we're all in pretty solid agreement on that one. Okay, how about compared to 2022? Do you think your company is more or less likely to be a target of ransomware attacks this year? So now, not just broad speaking, do we think this is a threat, but think about your organization looking back at the year before. Now, as we head into 2023, have you done all that you can do? Have you done a little bit more than maybe you did last year? Are you feeling a little bit more prepared as we start 2023 and thinking about going into this new year than maybe you were in the past? So more likely, we're talking about whether or not you're likely to be a target, not whether or not you're prepared. Do you think you're more likely to be a target, less likely to be a target, or you know what, you think it's going to be about the same? Most of you saying that you think it's going to be about the same. Okay, yeah, that's interesting. Good reminder to be focused on that security then. Okay, so now let's talk about how long do you think the estimated time would be to bounce back from ransomware. So we were talking about that a lot today, how you come back on the other side and what those downtimes can be. Do you think in your organization you'd be looking at hours? Would you be looking at days, maybe more like weeks or months? Or hey, we are up the creek without a paddle, absolutely hooped if we had a ransomware attack? How long do you think it would take your organization to bounce back? Days, hours, weeks, months, or absolutely just up a creek? All right, last question coming up for you here. All right, so do you think those, this is a big one, in your organization are well aware of the threat? We started this day talking to Roger about training and phishing and a culture of security awareness and in your organization. So let's come back around to that. Do you think that your organization has done a good job of making sure that the people within your organization are aware? So the answer is yes, most are, it's like 50-50, few, almost nobody cares, or there is no awareness whatsoever. We are all doomed. Just the absolute, I'm picturing the Scream painting. I see we had one person respond here, I won't say her name in case you don't want me to, that they would be up a creek with half a paddle. So that's a fair answer. And we did also get Dan here saying ransomware is a matter of if. or not a matter of if, but when. So make sure that you are protecting your environment. Allie, I see you said you responded in chat, not the poll. That's fine. Thank you very much for responding, and we do appreciate that. All right, well, and to all of you who took some time to respond to this poll here, this is extremely helpful. As I said, this is we're just collecting this for creating some resources that we can then share back with all of you, so we can give you an idea of where you are all at, and kind of benchmarking against the other folks in our community here. Again, no specifics mentioned, just thinking high level. Well, thanks to everyone who filled out that poll. I promised you a prize giveaway as a reward, and I meant it. So let's wrap up with our last prizes of the day. So we are going to start with a $300 Amazon gift card, and then don't go anywhere because I have another grand prize after that. I'll remind you again that you do need to be here live, present at the summit in order to win. This is, sorry, I'm just going to read this comment out. This is a good comment from Russell here. Knowing about it isn't as good as knowing enough to take action. Great point, Russell. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's great if people know about ransomware, they recognize that as a word. Maybe they know a little bit beyond just the surface level. But if they don't know what to do, if they don't know how to take action, what's the point? That's not as helpful. Great point, Russell. Okay, so our last winner of a $300 Amazon gift card today is Sean Ford of Missouri. Sean Ford of Missouri. And then I'm going to go ahead and give it. And Mark, I see you asking for a full list of winners. I'm getting to that next, I promise you. All right, our very last grand prize is we're going to give away 3 Microsoft Surface Pro 9s. And these are going to go to Marcus Land of Texas, Robert Curtis of Iowa, and Charles Boyer of Pennsylvania. That was Marcus Land of Texas, Robert Curtis of Iowa, and Charles Boyer of Pennsylvania. Now, I just said I would read the entire list of our winners, and I will. So we have an Amazon gift card going to Charles Gall of Illinois, an Apple Watch going to Eric Wurzbacher of Ohio, to Vrej Anderson of California, and Mark Stevenson of Maryland. A gift card going to Sebastian Quintero of Texas, a gift card going to Aaron Sachs of Massachusetts, an iPhone 14 Plus going to Richard Calhoun of Indiana and to Ed Fabian of Missouri, a gift card, $300 Amazon gift card going to Greg Wood of Utah, also to Sean Ford of Missouri, and a Surface Pro 9 going to Marcus Land of Texas, Robert Curtis of Iowa, and Charles Boyer of Pennsylvania. As always, folks, we will be in touch about claiming your prize after we wrap the summit today. Don't forget that best question gift card is also still a possibility. We'll be looking over all the questions asked in every single session, and we will follow up with you. James, thanks for joining us. He just said awesome event. I appreciate that. We've had a lot of fun here today. And before you all take off, please do check out ransomware.org for some more resources, great follow-ups on everything that we learned. Plus, in short order, you'll be able to start seeing some of this data coming in that we're collecting on webinars like these, so you can kind of see what you helped participate in. You can also find everything that you need to know about ransomware, how to understand, how to prepare, how to prevent, how to recover. So visit ransomware.org for more information. Now, if you are here on the webinar today and you're having a good time, thank you. I'm seeing lots of high fives coming in. I love that. Marcus, Roberto, Peter, Ehab, and Ali. Just an awesome, awesome time having you all here. If any of you out there are thinking that you would like to participate and present, you want to get your organization involved, we would absolutely love to make that happen. So shoot us a message at connect@actualtechmedia.com, and we will get that conversation going. All right, well, with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I really want to thank all of our speakers today from KnowBe4, Rapid7, Rubrik, CyberArk, and Cisco Secure for making this summit possible. But also, honestly, a very special thank you to all of you for attending, for asking some great questions. I really had a lot of fun with you all today, digging into some of these layers and planning for defense in depth, as we say. I think that these interactions and collaborative conversations are especially important, especially about security and defenses, because when fear sets in, as we know, humans have a tendency to hide or maybe some of us to fight, but even whether it's fight or flight or freeze, whatever we do, we often do it on our own, don't we? And we're stronger together. We know this. We see this all the time. We see it in history and every day, small scales and big scales. So our community matters. We have impact, and we can have conversations like these that allow us to increase that impact as a community. We can all strengthen our walls together, and that starts with these shared and collaborative conversations. So again, thank you so much for being a part of this, this summit today. And hey, for being a part of our community here at Actual Tech Media. Now, before you take off, I do want to make sure you mark your calendars. Come back and join us on Tuesday, February 7th at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. We're going to be chatting about supercharging public sector and education, technology, and security. So if that's your industry, make sure you're here. And even if it's not your industry, might be some interesting conversations to kind of chat about and get an idea. Obviously, lots of compliance things in that. So pretty good information across the board. Well, I hope that I get to see you all again soon. I hope that we get to chat and have some more conversations in the future. And until then, I hope that you all have an absolutely beautiful end to your days.